righty, folks. Welcome on in to the Central Committee stream.
And if you can't believe it, it's a Friday once again.
It is Friday, folks. Welcome on in to the Central Committee stream. We've got ourselves another Iran war update. Huge victory for the Trump administration as the Iran has decided to open the Strait of Hormuz. An absolute saving grace for the Trump administration that was nearing a catastrophe. The Iranians have decided to open the strait, saving the world economy and putting themselves in dire position. I don't know that the regime will be able to survive this decision. They have given up all of their negotiating leverage, and I don't know what else to say. This is probably also going to help facilitate the genocide and dispossession in Lebanon as well. Now, the reason why they have decided to do it is because of the, quote, 10-day ceasefire between the Lebanese puppet government and Israel. And I gotta say, that seems to be a face-saving maneuver. There must be desperately weaker than we thought. And, you know, I'm reevaluating all of my priors now. I think maybe the Iranian government is close to collapse. That's the only thing that really makes sense to me. Maybe there's a lot of pressure from China on Iran to open it up. Because, I mean, at this point, they just extended they just are basically going to allow the United States and Israel to carry on the war for probably another 3 months before they could get back to the situation they were in now. So I don't think they're going to be able to handle that. So I guess the U.S. is going to win. What can you say? Yeah. Trump said the strait is still closed to Chinese, Russian, and Iranian ships. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess the Iranians decided they wanted to lose. I don't know what else to say, you know? Oof. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, again, if I'd like to hear the logic behind it, I don't really think there is any logic behind it. I mean, listen, you're getting bombed. Like, it's easy to be like, oh man, I can't believe they're doing this. They're giving up their one piece of leverage and helping the United States rescue itself from a global crisis. And therefore, all the pressure that was being put on the U.S. is now completely diffused. And Israel is free to continue to attack and assassinate members of the Iranian government. I mean, like, honestly, I consider this I don't know what to say. I think you can kind of see why Iran was getting bombed so much, because they've continued to fail in diplomacy. Diplomacy is as important as diplomacy is war, right? So when you give up everything in diplomacy, it's the same thing as giving it up because you got invaded. You know, you just made it cheaper and easier for your opposition to do that. You seem sad the strait is open. No, I'm not. I mean, it's sad from the point of view of world peace. It's sad from the point of view of world peace because the United States is going to be emboldened to do more assassinations, more invasions, more destruction of the international order. And from my point of view, I think that it's bad that the United States is able to do that. Now, obviously, who am I to criticize Iran? Like, I'm not being bombed and my life isn't under threat. So I understand capitulation. Like, capitulation has logic to it, you know? I mean, if you can't fight and and there's no hope of victory, then you give up. I mean, like, that's the natural logic of defeat, right? So, my criticism is this isn't even really criticism, it's just an observation. It appears that Iran is close to defeat, much more so than we thought, and they're surrendering. I mean, it is what it is. What do you want me to say? I'm guessing this has to do with good faith of negotiations. I mean, listen, there's a bunch of like cope that you can cook up, but this just looks like Iran is being defeated. They don't bother with any cope, right? Like, Israel ceasefire. What is this, like the 80th ceasefire of the last 4 years? What the fuck are you talking about? They gave up. They surrendered to America. Like, I don't know what else to say.
Potential headlines from the foreign minister of Iran saying that the Strait of Hormuz is, quote, completely open in line with the ceasefire.
Mike, I think it's good faith. They can close it again if they want. I'll put it to you like this. Here's a good example of it. Let's say that someone is murdering children, right? But you control the water well at the center of the city. You're not strong enough to kill the murderer, right? But the murderer is walking around killing kids, but he's starting to die of thirst, right? And he's starting to die of thirst, so he's killing less kids. And he's starting to spend more time around the well going, hey, man, can I drink some water? Please, can I drink some water? And you're like, no, man, you're not allowed to drink any water. And right before he dies of thirst, you go, oh, well, you aren't killing as many kids right now. Here's a bucket of water. Can I convince you to stop killing kids? And then he goes, oh, thank you. I was about to die. And he drinks the water. Then he goes, all right, well, back to killing kids again. That's the equivalent. That's what happened. Now you could say, well, he could just close the well again. Well, you just gave him another 3 days to go around killing kids. So I'm sorry, this was stupid. Unless they're about to be defeated and they're trying to protect, like they're doing. The logic of this is extreme regime preservation, or the person making decision is actually a Mossad agent. So those are the two realities. Either the Iranian regime is close to being defeated, or they've killed so many leaders that the decision makers are now actually agents. That's the only thing that could make that make sense. I think they want Israel and the U.S. to always be the bad guys in the narrative. What do you even say to that? I think the other thing is, like, I do think, you know, the axis of resistance has been very ineffective in you know, the way they have fought against the United States and Israel. And I understand that there's, you know, a lot of people don't like when you criticize a side or you exerve a side, but they have been pretty thoroughly defeated by Israel and the United States. You know, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's like, I think, you know, maybe there's a lot of emotion connected to it. But this is sort of like when the Germans got around the Maginot Line, right? And you're like, I can't believe you're on the side of the Nazis. No, I'm just observing that the French army and the British army were defeated. It's not because I'm like excited about it or anything. I'm just observing reality. Like, you got to be able to look at it and go, they have been defeated. The Iranians, they put on a good fight. They lasted for longer than people thought, but they have been defeated. That's why the stock market is going to go up 1,000 points today. That's why the S&P 500 has now reached an all-time high. Today is the highest the American stock market has ever been. So this is a belief in the markets that Iran has been defeated. And maybe they're wrong, but the evidence is that they're correct. That's why the markets are doing what they're doing. And Trump has been saying it for weeks. So, and I also did predict this, just so you guys know. I said if the Strait of Hormuz was to be opened, the stock market would skyrocket, oil prices would crash, and that's what is, you know, as soon as the Hormuz Strait was opened, this would be the result. And he did it on a Friday again. So Iran was able to hold their own until the United States said, hey, we're also going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And then Iran is now capitulating. And capitulating is the word for it. I don't want you to spend any time coping because it's annoying. Iran is capitulating. So, you know, it is what it is. Oil prices tumble more than 10% as Iran declares Strait of Hormuz open, easing supply fears. That's it. They've given up their leverage. Another analogy would be, let's assume that you had somebody hostage and you're in a house and you're surrounded by a SWAT team. And the negotiator says, why don't you let the hostage go? They're an innocent person. And then we could talk to the SWAT team. Or if you want to make this analogy make more sense, how about this? You're in a house surrounded by the Gestapo and you've got a Nazi colonel hostage. And the Nazi negotiator says, why don't you just let the Nazi go? And then we'll talk about this. And then you decide to do it. You let him go. Now it's just you surrounded by the Gestapo. That's the decision that was made today. So at the end of the day, either again, and And you may look at this and you may go like, oh, Mike, you thought that the Iranians had good strategic position. They did. Now they don't. They don't now. And I don't know how they defend themselves at this point. You know, they like you traded your most powerful leverage for a 10-day ceasefire between the Lebanese government and Israel, which wasn't at war. You know what I mean? Like, you mean the American puppet government and Israel? Like, what do you mean? There's nothing to spin here. This is just what's true. If I remember correctly, Iran had opened the strait when they closed it because Israel kept attacking Lebanon. Would it make sense for them to open it now while Israel has stopped in Lebanon? Do you think it's a sign that Iran is winning, that the United States of America's oil prices and European oil prices are dropping by 13% in the hour since this happened? Do you think it's a sign that they're winning, that the United States of America's stock market is at the highest point it's ever been in history? Do you think that's a sign that Iran is winning? Nobody is winning. The United States of America is winning the war. Why are you pretending that they're not winning? What the fuck are you talking about? They didn't even have to send a single ship to the Strait of Hormuz. They opened the strait without America having to risk anything. This is a catastrophic defeat. This is a massive strategic blunder, the likes of which I don't think I've ever seen. It's a sign that Iran has markets by the balls. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's the opposite. Could China have pressured Iran? Yeah, I mean, sure, absolutely. That must be part of it, without a doubt. How is any of this significant? I think one of the problems that the left has, and many people in general have, is an inability to accept reality when it goes against what they think should happen or ought to happen or they want to happen or any of those other things. Like, you gotta be able to look at reality and go, well, looks like the Iranians are just made a massive strategic blunder. And why do I even have to explain this to you? You guys know how Trump looks and thinks. He cares about the markets. The markets are going up really high. To Trump, that means he's winning. So he's going to keep doing what he's doing. He has not been punished for violating international law. This very well may encourage him to invade Cuba. I got to call balls and strikes, man. Like, it is what it is. Greenland, is back on the table. I mean, this is what happened with Hitler, by the way. This is the equivalent of, I think of this as the Munich Convention. This is Iran's Munich Convention. They fucked up so badly. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. Couldn't they reclose it? I guess. I mean, but again, it's like the analogy I said before, which is like, imagine there's a child murderer wandering around the village, but there's only one water source, which is the well in the center of town. And just as the murderer was starting to get thirsty, you decided to give him a bucket of water. Now he can go back to killing more kids. They had one strategic advantage, which was holding the Strait of Hormuz. If by letting oil flow through it again unimpeded for 10 days, do you think they're going to have standard oil? All the tankers are going to leave the Gulf. They're going to have a much higher than average export rate. They're going to get as much oil as they can out of the strait as fast as they can. This is way dumber than it's like. This may be one of the biggest strategic blunders I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I don't think you guys are understanding the scale of this disastrous decision. Again, the Munich conference is the best analogy for me, which is like, hey, we're going to give you the Sudetenland without a fight. Well, do you think Hitler is going to be like, you know what? I've got enough. I'm going to stop now. I got enough. I got the Sudetenland and I'm just going to stop taking land. Or is he going to go, ha ha, they gave it to me without a fight, and go and take more? Trump just said this week, when I'm done with Iran, I'm going into Cuba. You're giving USA and Israel 10 days of additional airstrikes. It's not 10 days. It's much longer than that. I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this, guys. This is the stock market of the last month. This is a stock market now. This is all time. Look at that. You see this? Donald Trump will look at this and say, aggressively attacking countries results in me making line go up. I'm winning. Now, luckily, he's unpopular at home. Luckily, Americans don't like him. Luckily, he's so obnoxious and annoying, people don't like it. Don't like him. Thank God. But is it really a strategic blunder if the war actually stops so that people are not being killed in Iran? What's another analogy to help you understand it? Okay, let's assume somebody comes to your house and starts with an AK-47 and they start pouring bullets into your house from the sidewalk, killing your mother, your father, and your brother. All right. And then they run out of bullets. The cops show up. The cops have a conversation with the guy. They go, hey, stop shooting. And he goes, you know what? I'll stop shooting for 10 days. And then he walks away. And then he drives to the gun store to get more ammo. Are you glad that the shooting has stopped? This is, I don't know what else to say. And you know, I'm not trying to be overly emotional here. I'm trying to be very, very clear you know, this is why I look at the markets. This is why I don't just go off my vibes. You have to this is why elections are useful as well. Because if you allow yourself to just be existing in your own mental model, you'll always cope endlessly about how right you are. Okay? You need to start looking at objective measurements that are outside of your spin that you can look at and say, hey, what is the effect of the thing that just happened? Elections tell you, hey, your side has less people liking it or more people liking it. And you can kind of just deal with that reality as opposed to just fantasizing about a population that doesn't really exist. And, you know, the market in oil is getting a lot cheaper. Now below $80 a barrel in June. This has dropped an unbelievable 14% in the hour since the market has been open. Now, I want you to understand something, chat, is that this is a complete and utter catastrophic defeat for Iran. And they were defeated because of, I don't know why. And that's the gap in the knowledge, right? Like, you know, we don't have the ability to assess Iranian conditions very well because the media is not very accurate. So they must be a lot worse off than we thought. And so we don't really know exactly what's going on within Iran. Maybe they're about to lose some sort of like major city from a rebellion or something like this. Like, I'm trying to get you to understand why I would make such a decision. And I would make such a decision if I was about to die myself. You know what I mean? Like, and there was no hope of victory. There's really nothing more to say. Iran, I don't know, guys. They gave up their only leverage. What's another good example of the equivalent for the U.S.? This would be like the U.S. saying that they're going to close down all their bases in the Middle East. That's how much of a defeat. It's like if Trump announced that for a 10-day ceasefire, he's going to give up all American bases in the Middle East, would you cope and say that that's an American victory? I'm just asking. Would you, if Trump said, to do a 10-day ceasefire, I am withdrawing all American troops from the Middle East, would you say Trump and the Trump and the Zionists have won a major victory there with the retreat? No, you would go, haha, the United States lost. So this is the other side. This is the equivalent of the other side, which is Iran gave up their only leverage. Iran just gave up their only leverage. That's why the markets are soaring. Markets are soaring because they're like, oh, we won the war. Mike, I don't think you're being objective. Is cope so attractive for people? Hey, God damn it. Why is cope so attractive for people? It's crazy. Jesus fucking Christ. This is why we lose so much. Stop fucking coping all the time. My God. Because reality is boring. Boring. You mean it feels bad. Before, didn't you think the markets were coping? Apparently they were right. Apparently Iran was close to giving in. In the past, I thought, oh, that's crazy. They're going to run out of oil. The markets are insane. And then Iran said the Strait of Hormuz is open. So all the people were like, don't worry, they're going to open the Strait of Hormuz soon. We're right. Sides are pointing to a higher likelihood of a framework agreement between the U.S. and Iran being secured through Pakistan in the next few days, to be followed by another 30-60 days for final agreement. That is indeed an achievement, but it's important to understand how vulnerable the final agreement will be in the 30-day window to Israeli sabotage. I'm sorry, this is fucking funny. Israelis have won. What do you mean? The Israelis have won. What the fuck are you talking about? They have been highly rewarded for doing what they're doing. I mean, Lebanon is in deep trouble. I mean, we saw the kind of cracks in the axis of a resistance while, like, you know, Hezbollah stayed out of the Gaza genocide until they all got detonated by sabotaged pagers. But the axis of resistance is pretty shattered. Like, the Iranians let Hezbollah get attacked. They let the Houthis get attacked. They stayed out of the war until they got massively fucking assassinated. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but you know, by giving up the Strait of Hormuz, the last like kind of cope is gone. So, you know, whoever's in the power at Iran right now is kind of eager for whatever kind of puppet regime arrangement that the United States and Israel are going to dictate. So does this mean Israel gets a free pass to continue? Yes. I mean, Americans don't like Israel, which is the good sign, I guess. That's the best thing, is that everyone thinks Israel sucks in America, which is that's the one good thing that has happened. But that's a long-term strategic vulnerability that could be reversed. But, you know, as far as strategically and tactically, it does seem that the axis of resistance has been pretty thoroughly defeated. If past patterns are repeated, Israel will do everything in its power to prevent any deal that ends the U.S.-Iran enmity and lifts sanctions on Iran. If he really wants to deal, Trump will have to be tougher on Netanyahu than he ever has before. Bro, come on. I mean, Trina is basically just saying I'm right. Trina is saying I'm right, but the problem is that, can you imagine signing a diplomatic agreement with Donald Trump? Like, how? That's embarrassing. That's fucking embarrassing. As opposed to what? Getting material concessions. What material concessions has the United States given to Iran? All that's happened is they've bombed the shit out of Iran, assassinated its leaders, killed its citizens, and said that they have the right to do so whatever they feel like. And Iran, in response, has kept the Strait of Hormuz open. I need this information. Okay, the Iranians are like, they have to take the route north of Lark Island, which is, if you know the geography of the strait, it's that like long island that, you know, so because, and by the way, most of the transit was like that before, so they're just kind of the Strait of Hormuz will be fully transferred to Iran's territorial waters. This is historic, unprecedented, and enduring change in the Persian Gulf, ensuring Iran's sovereignty over the strait forever. In this matter, Iran is in fact carrying out an unprecedented rerouting operation in the strait. The second condition, which is also mentioned in the foreign minister's tweet, is that only commercial ships will have the right to pass through the strait. The determination of which ships are commercial will be up to Iran, and this will naturally exclude any vessels with connections to the enemy, thus allowing the passage practically limited by Iran's determination and not free. Passing commercial vessels will also be required to pay Iranian tolls for security provision. Third condition is that the passage will be carried out in coordination with Iran's forces responsible for the navigation of the strait, namely the IRGC Navy. What Navy? It's all sunk. Considering all these conditions together, passage through the strait will be limited, subject to toll payments, and managed by Iran. And this is precisely what Iran has been pursuing since the beginning of the war. It is now imposing on America. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, the reason why I can't believe they got snowed. They got snowed big time because the United States of America, you know, maybe if they pay a little bit of money now, what, you can't have access to the international markets. You're sanctioned. You're like, okay. So they pay you a little bit of tolls, and then they make sure that the oil markets stay well supplied. None of the rest of the world faces any kind of economic constriction. And then they go back to bombing you again whenever they feel like there's enough oil. They have enough oil in storage. So you just gave them like a lifeline that they can then use to rebuild up storage until they decide to attack you again. Meanwhile, Lebanon is fucked. They have like demolished almost all the structures below the Litani River and displaced 600,000 Lebanese people. And they got a 10-day ceasefire? Oh, you're right. Qasem is the Long Island, Lark is the other island. Yeah, no, you're right. Thank you, Mandela. No, you're right. God, why could I never get a good... Why are there no good maps? Why is the internet like actually getting worse? Why is the internet like... Why is it so bad? Holy shit. Okay, here is the chatter is right. This is Lark Island, the Rock Island, whatever you pronounce it. So the thing about the strait is that it's actually pretty shallow. Why is it called a strait when it curves so much? Good question. Someone burned down a Raytheon building in Georgia. Investigation underway after overnight fire at Raytheon building in Warner Robins. Yeah, there's definitely some shit kicking off. I guess you're right. I don't know. I'm going to take Iran's statement at face value, but I'm not going to take shit on it completely and discard it as if the fucking markets are reflecting realistic optimism. They are. What the fuck are you talking about? The Strait of Hormuz is open. That is the most important fact. Iran has ended their... First of all, keep in mind that oil supplies were actually very strong prior to the war. There was an oil oversupply in the world markets, and oil was relatively cheap. So the ability to strangle the world market in the Hormuz was lesser than typical conditions. So by giving it up, by opening it up, you have completely restored all of the strategic vulnerability that the United States and the world markets were feeling. And the markets are now skyrocketing and oil prices are crashing because of that. So they have largely capitulated their only geographic strategic advantage. This is what the United States wanted. The United States has achieved their goals. Now, the last question is, oh, can you give up your nuclear program? Well, they've bombed their nuclear program into the fucking dust. So the United States, so Iran is going to have to do what? They're going to have to take heavy equipment and dig to get back to their storage facilities. But the United States has largely geographic and strategic dominance over in the airspace of Iran. So if they try to access their facilities, they'll be seized from the air and bombed. So again, the United States has demonstrated capabilities that make the entire country of Iran vulnerable to attack. You went from it's all in caves to it's all sunk. What do you mean? Have I ever said the Navy's in caves? Have I ever said the Iranian Navy is in caves? What are you talking about? The fuck are you saying? My concern about Iran's, Iran have always been, the longer this stretches out, the more degraded their military will be, because they don't have access to resupply in the same way that the United States does. But they have maintained the ability to strategically strike at Israel and the Gulf nations. Maybe they're depleted. You have to reevaluate all of your beliefs when one side gives in. You know what I mean? There's a certain status quo that is operating under certain conditions and certain beliefs, and then one side completely capitulates. You have to go reevaluate what you believe. You know what I mean? You have to look at that and go, oh, this one side is completely capitulating, so maybe our inferences are not correct. That's just, if it feels like I'm 180ing, do you see the Strait of Hormuz is open? The Strait of Hormuz is open. So I reevaluate my beliefs because the Strait of Hormuz is open. I'm not the one who's 180ing. Oil is down 14% in an hour. Last week you said it was possible that Trump could do it. Of course Trump could still nuke Iran, but it doesn't appear that he needs to. Iran just announced the Strait of Iran is fully open and ready for full passage. Thank you. The Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage. But the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran only until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. This process should go very quickly, and that most of the points are already negotiated. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. The USA will get all the nuclear dust created by our great B-2 bombers. No money will exchange hands in any shape, or form. This deal is in no way subject to Lebanon either, but the U.S. will separately work with Lebanon and deal with Hezbollah's situation in an appropriate manner. Israel will not be bombing Lebanon any longer. They are prohibited from doing so by the USA. Enough is enough. Oh, okay. That's good. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump. Now that the Hormuz Strait situation is over, I received a call from NATO asking if we would need some help. I told them to stay away unless they want us to load up their ships with oil. They are useless when needed. A paper tiger, President Donald J. Trump. Thank you to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar for your great bravery and help. Iran, with the help of the USA, has removed or is removing all sea mines. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump. Again, this deal is not tied in any way to Lebanon, but we will make Lebanon great again. Thank you to Pakistan and its great Prime Minister and Field Marshal, two fantastic people, President Donald J. Trump. Those are the American puppets that overthrew the democratically elected government. A great and brilliant day for the world, Donald J. Trump. Iran has agreed to never close the Strait of Hormuz again. It will no longer be used as a weapon against the world. President Donald J. Trump. The failing New York Times, fake news, CNN, and others just don't know what to do. They are desperately looking for a reason to criticize Donald J. Trump on the Iran situation, but just can't find it. Why don't they just say at the right time, job well done, Mr. President, and start to gain back their credibility? There you go. I don't know what to say. What can you say? How many times did he mention himself in the third person? You'd have to go back and count. So we're believing his word now? No, we're believing the Iranians. They said that they're opening the Strait. Is this Asmongold or Mike Forbid? I mean, I think one of the things that is going to frustrate a lot of people about me, and I'm glad that you're learning it now, is that I'm not delusional. I had the same experience after Super Tuesday in 2020, where it was like Bernie Sanders lost, and I was like, guys, he lost. He's not going to be the nominee. And people were fucking coping, and they were mauling, and they couldn't handle it. And it's just like, bro, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is the reality. And I told them it's going to be at least 8 years before we have another chance like this again. Here it is, 6 years later. Everything I said then came true. You know, at a certain point, you should not be delusional. You know, like sometimes bad guys win. New info, new analysis, new data. The Iranians had a strong choke point with the Strait of Hormuz. They decided to give it up. Now, I don't know exactly why they decided to give it up. To me, there's nothing that the United States and Israel would be willing to do in order to do that. Maybe they were getting a lot of pressure from China. Maybe they felt like China was about to turn on Iran because China depends on Middle East oil. Maybe the Asian countries were putting a lot of pressure on Iran and threatening Iran behind the scenes. I don't know. You know, I don't know why they decided this. If they decided to do this for what the reasons they're saying they decided to do it, then it was a humongous mistake. You know, ultimately, we don't have the same access to the same kinds of information as, you know, I wish we did. All we could do is make inferences. Israeli media is not celebrating because they're Nazis and they want to annex part of Lebanon. And they're doing ethnic cleansing in Lebanon. They want to annex part of Lebanon. And they're being told, no, you can't do that. So, yeah, of course, the Nazi Israelis are unhappy. They haven't been able to nuke Tehran yet. That's not evidence of anything. Israel, under the 10-day ceasefire, is permitted to carry out strikes in Lebanon as long as they are in self-defense. Guys, I don't know why people are so desperate for, like, Baghdad Bob type analysis. Why do you guys want Baghdad Bob analysis from me? Wouldn't you rather I say what needs to be said? You know, wouldn't you want me to tell you the truth? Some people, a lot of people claim to want the truth, but then they can't handle it. Israel shall preserve its right to take all necessary measures in self-defense at any time against planned, imminent, or ongoing attacks. This shall not be impeded by the cessation of hostilities. Besides this, it will not carry out any offensive military operations against Lebanese targets, including civilian military and other state targets in the territory of Lebanon by land, air, and sea. So in other words, ceasefire with the Lebanese government, which is not party to the conflict, and they reserve the right to attack Hezbollah and call it self-defense. That's not a ceasefire. Ceasefire is we will cease firing completely and return to peace. We will return to diplomatic solutions only. That's a ceasefire. If one side can keep bombing the other side, that's not a ceasefire. If all this is true, it would mean that Trump managed to negotiate a better agreement for the U.S. than the JCPOA. Did Trump actually bumble his way into doing something successful? Absolutely. I mean, we'll see what happens. But Trump is saying the United States is going to be able to get Iran's uranium, which will fully put them in a Libya-type defeat. And I think it's really fascinating because, like, you know, Muammar Gaddafi used to be one of the strongest, third world opponents of the United States. He gave up his nuclear program. He tried to sign a deal with the U.S. And then during the Arab Spring, there was an al-Qaeda uprising in Libya, and the United States supported it through NATO airstrikes, which ultimately led to Gaddafi's government collapsing and him being murdered on the street, tortured to death. So, you know, signing deals with the United States that cause you to be weaker militarily or close off your ability to defend yourself developing nuclear weapons oftentimes leads to your regime collapsing. So I consider Iran to be in a very much worse position than they were yesterday. So, you know, whatever paper promises they got, and Trump is acting like they didn't get much. And you know what? I hate to say it, but I believe Trump in this instance because it doesn't appear that they got anything significant. It doesn't appear they got anything significant. And again, I'm open to other information. Like, you know, this is a very contingent position. President Trump tells me Iran agreed to everything. I guess we'll have to see what that means. I just spoke with President Trump on the phone in Las Vegas, and I asked him about the stream of Truth Social posts he's been sharing. I got right to the point. I asked the president if Iran agreed to stop enriching uranium. Yes, he told me. They agreed to stop enriching uranium. They agreed to everything, he told me. Yes, are you surprised? I asked, are you surprised? He told me, I'm not surprised by anything. Then he said, I'll see you later, and the call ended. The Iranians are denying everything. Who gives a fuck? They opened the Strait of Hormuz. They got owned. They got tricked by they fell for Trump. That's embarrassing. How do you get outmaneuvered by Trump diplomatically is pretty embarrassing. I don't know what to say to that. That's rough. Let's take a look at what's being reported in mainstream news.
The Iranian foreign minister on X says that the Strait of Hormuz is open for all commercial vessels. We're just learning this right now. Let me read what
Mike would ever say they opened the strait with the toll.
We are getting this from X. The foreign minister saying, in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire.
So this is the Iranian foreign minister. Is he lying or?
On coordinated routes as already announced by ports and maritime organizations of the Islamic Republic of Iran. But this is a huge announcement coming from the Iranian foreign minister about what has become a central part of the negotiation.
They want $20 billion in exchange for uranium. U.S. considers $20 billion cash for uranium deal with Iran as peace talks progress. That would be a horrific blunder by Iran. That would be fucking cheap. That would be a horrific blunder of Iran. Of the types of which, again, I think the Gaddafi is a good analogy. I mean, if you feel like your regime is about to collapse and you're trying to save your own life, I mean, I guess I can see why you would agree to that. You know, if you're Iran, there really can't be any amount of money that you would accept because it's what? How can you spend it? You're fucking sanctioned to hell. It's worthless paper.
Getting the Strait of Hormuz open and safely. And so we're going to bring you much more as we get this in, literally coming in as we're talking about. As we are getting this, we also have a new report that claims the United States is also considering
build nukes anyway. In order to build nukes, you need to have extremely highly enriched uranium or plutonium. If you don't have the uranium or the plutonium, you can't build the nukes. In order to have highly enriched uranium or plutonium, you need large facilities. Large centrifuge facilities in order to process uranium, naturally occurring uranium, into the level of concentration needed in order to develop a device. If you give up all your enriched uranium, then you can't make a nuke because you don't have the material to make a nuke. That's why making nukes is difficult, because it requires state level or massive investment in order to develop the facilities. And the facilities are very large, and so they get detected. So people become aware that you're developing nuclear weapons because you build these facilities. And if your government has any spies in it, which Iran's government has a ton of spies in it, it is very unlikely that you're going to be able to do what needs to be done as far as processing, or uranium into a device. Then you also need to test it and miniaturize it in order to make it into a weapon. All of those stages require an extremely high level of sophistication and coordination between thousands of people. And unfortunately, they are detectable. So if they sell all their uranium to America for $20 billion, all that's happened is they have been defeated, because $20 billion is fuck all in the grand scheme of things. And the United States controls the world financial system. So you're giving them your uranium, which you cannot buy, and turning it into dollars, which you cannot spend. Is this mega GG? I mean, pretty close to mega GG. It's pretty close to a mega GG for Iran, yeah.
A $20 billion deal that would help to end the conflict. This is a report from Axios, co-written also by CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak Ravid. Let me read a quote from this reporting now coming in. The U.S. and Iran are negotiating over a 3-page plan to end the war, with one element under discussion being that the U.S. would release $20 billion in
That's their own money.
Frozen Iranian funds in return for Iran giving up its stockpile of enriched uranium. This according to 2 U.S. officials and 2 additional sources briefed on the talks. A lot of breaking news here. Let's get to Nick Robertson. He's in Islamabad on this breaking news first. Nick, what do you make of it?
Look, it seems to me we're getting some positive breakthroughs. The fact that the Iranian foreign minister has said the Strait of Hormuz is open to all commercial vessels really seems to indicate that the talks that the Pakistani mediators are having, and they're going into their third day of talks in Tehran right now, are beginning to bear some fruit. Sources I've been speaking to involved in all of this are sounding and looking very positive about where the talks are at the moment. Of course, I'm not getting an indication of what other hurdles there may be to overcome, but it has been one of the things that Iran has wanted, one of those points. They want assets unfrozen. They want to see sanctions lifted. They want money for war rations and damages. We've been talking here about billions upon billions of dollars. Last weekend at the talks, the Iranians said they'd asked the United States for $8 billion in unfrozen assets. At the time in the talks last Saturday and Sunday, the White House knocked down the suggestion Iran was going to get that. But it's always been part of Iran's core demands. Iran's now lifted, it seems, their own blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Is that in exchange for money? Are they expecting the money to come? But what the Iranian foreign minister has said, and I think this is very, very telling, and we were talking about this just yesterday, that the reason that the Iranians have lifted their blockade on the Strait of Hormuz for the remaining duration of the ceasefire, probably as the US-Iran ceasefire, which has about 5 days to run. He said this is because that there is a ceasefire in Lebanon. These things have been inextricably linked in the Iranian mind. So while the Pakistani lead negotiating team has been in Tehran talking, of course, that Lebanon deal came through yesterday. We were saying that that was going to aid and benefit the talks in Tehran, and it does seem to be the case. Now, what remain the sticking points? The nuclear issue, that enriched uranium, Iran's commitment and desire for a nuclear bomb, that's always been at the core of US demands. That's what President Trump was saying yesterday. He said Iran had forsworn that it wasn't going to have a nuclear weapon. He also said Iran had agreed to hand over the nuclear dust. We don't have details on that yet, but these moves at the moment sound like that Iran is softening. It sounds like a deal gets closer into view.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, on the other side of the screen, we're looking at right along with you is we're seeing, looking at oil prices right now dropping over 9%, Brent crude as well as WTI standard in the States. Oil markets reacting understandably to this news coming in. There's a lot to digest here. Nick Robertson tracking all these developments in Islamabad for us. Let's get over to the White House now. Elena Treen is there as well. A lot of elements here, Elena. You've got the announcement coming from the Iranian foreign minister about the Strait. You've got this reporting from Barak Ravid of Axios about a $20 billion in frozen Iranian funds that could be part of the discussion. Something talking about frozen funds being handed over, something President Trump has been highly critical of the previous nuclear deal in the past. What are you hearing from there right now?
Yeah, highly critical is definitely right. I'd remind you that under the Obama administration, when you had that Iranian nuclear deal, they had handed over $400 million in cash to the Iranians during that agreement. But look, from everything that Nick laid out and that Axios report, it is lining up with the conversations that I am having, which is that there is a lot of optimism right now in that building behind me, Kate, about where things stand around a potential deal. Now, I don't want to be, too optimistic. You hear a lot of this talk among Trump administration officials about how positive they are. There are, of course, still sticking points that remain, as Nick laid out. This idea of the length of time that the Iranians would agree to suspend their enrichment of uranium, and also a deal on having the U.S. or some sort of country going in and retrieving the nuclear materials still in Tehran's possession. But they are hopeful that they are getting to a place now where really an agreement is in sight. And I know from the conversations I've been having that Trump administration officials are really working toward and hoping that a potential second round of these talks, of this meeting, could happen in person between the U.S. and Iranians as early as this weekend. Again, things are very fluid, so we have to see what happens today. But today is also a very important day because we know that the Pakistanis have been meeting with Iranian officials in Tehran. The Pakistanis, of course, the key intermediary here between Washington and Tehran. The Pakistanis have been in touch with top Trump administration officials throughout this process. And so really the goal of those talks in Tehran are to try and get the Iranians to a level of significant compromise where, again, the contours of a potential agreement really could be reached. And that is the goal they're working toward. I'd remind you the ceasefire, the 2-week ceasefire expires on Tuesday, April 21st. And there had been talk earlier this week of a possible extension. But from the conversations I've had, Kate, with White House officials is they want to try and formulate some sort of deal before the ceasefire ends. A very ambitious goal, but it does seem, as you know, today with this latest news about the Iranians reopening the Strait thanks to that ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, that they are actually moving closer to that goal. And just to go back to that ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon that, of course, President Trump announced yesterday, I am told that that had a positive effect on some of the talks that are going, of course, between the U.S. and Iran through the Pakistanis on a broader agreement. And so a lot of different developments today that we are learning of. We have to see, I think, these negotiations are continuing. I think a lot of these reports we have to be careful with because things are fluid. These negotiations are not over. An agreement has not been reached. But that's certainly, I think, adding to the level of optimism that this Trump...
My reaction to that is, of course, the reporter is completely correct. The problem that we have here is that the Iranians have given, like, the thing that puts pressure on Trump, and maybe the Iranians don't understand this about America, which, understandable, but the thing that puts pressure on Trump is high oil prices and stock market going down. Those are the only issues that put pressure on Trump, right? And so by doing what they've done, they have alleviated all the pressure on Trump. And so Trump is perfectly willing to continue doing what he's doing because they have removed the only pressure on Trump. And it's kind of hard to believe they didn't understand that. And it's also hard to believe that they didn't understand what would happen with the markets when they did that. So what the Iranians have effectively done is removed most of their ability to pressure Trump. And the other thing is, if Iran then tries to go back on what they're saying, well, then they look like they're the arbitrary ones. They look like they're not trustworthy, right? And it's going to result on more and more people kind of placing the blame on Iran, which is what everybody wants to do. You have to understand this. The world wants to blame Iran, okay? The world wants to blame Iran, but they can't because Iran didn't do anything wrong. They were attacked, and everybody understands that, right? And the world, as far as like regular people, were against the war and against Trump doing it. But if the Iranians maneuver themselves into becoming the aggressor, seemingly to become the aggressor by breaking a negotiated settlement, that will give the United States and Israel more ability to do more attacks throughout the Middle East and Latin America. And so, I don't really understand the strategic thinking. I think it is, as I said before, similar to this is kind of like Iran's Munich Convention. They have given up everything that they had as far as leverage in favor of paper promises. And, I don't know what else to say.
Administration feels
I don't think anyone's changed their minds. Nobody's changed their minds. Trillions of dollars have been spent today by people changing their minds. Trillions. What the fuck are you saying? I think one of the things that I think that a lot of people, they put the idea that they're a socialist out there, and then they kind of end the thinking process as if they found the answers to every question in a book, and they no longer have to reference reality anymore. They just have to go back to the book. And it's like, that's not what's... If you read the books, they tell you not to do that. Like, that is a knee-jerk reaction. A knee-jerk reaction to them opening the Strait of Hormuz, ending their only leverage over America. Mike, the past 4 weeks, we have talked about the market being fakest shit in the world. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said is the markets are acting as if Iran is about to open the Strait of Hormuz. And there's no reason to believe that the markets are about to open the Strait of Hormuz. And then Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz. So the markets were right. The markets were right that Iran was about to open the Strait of Hormuz. And do you know how we know they're right? Because Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. Iran hasn't opened the Strait of Hormuz. These prices don't make sense unless they are assuming an imminent opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And we talked about the difference between physical oil prices and futures oils prices. And we kept saying this only makes sense if they're about to open the Strait of Hormuz. Because if they don't, then all this is going to crash and it's going to be a horrible market correction because the markets are way off track of the physical delivery of oil. And then Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz. I'll give you an example. Let's say that we had a fair coin. Let's say that we have a fair coin and you could bet heads or you could bet tails. Now, if you have a fair coin, the outcome that you would expect is that for the money to be distributed evenly between heads and tails. But let's assume that 80% of the money was on heads. 80% of people who came to bet on the coin flip kept betting heads. And the odds for tails went up and up and up. And you look at that situation, you're like, okay, if this is a fair coin, I should bet on tails, right? But it wasn't a fair coin. The fact that so many people were coming to bet on heads is indication that maybe the coin isn't fair. And then you flip the coin and it lands heads. That's what just happened. That's what just happened. So maybe it's a fair coin and they just got lucky. Or maybe they knew something that we didn't know. Or maybe Iran is just dumb as fuck and they opened the strait because I don't know why. Again, there's not really a good reason for it. And the reason of, oh, they're doing a ceasefire in Lebanon for 5 days, that's embarrassing. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you saying? They just displaced 600,000 people and demolished like almost all of Lebanon south of the Strait of it's not the Strait, the river Litani, like the Litani River. What the fuck are you saying? They did billions and billions of dollars of damage. A 5-day ceasefire is going to make you let the oil transit the strait? What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. I think one of the things that happens is a lot of people, like, obviously it's rough to go from one analysis to another analysis, but this is what happens. Sometimes you have beliefs and they're dependent upon one set of circumstances, and then those circumstances no longer exist. You've got to change your views. You can't double down on this shit over there. Maybe Iran aren't nihilistic dumbass teenagers grifting on Twitch. Okay, Iran isn't nihilistic. I never said Iran was nihilistic. I said they gave up their leverage over the world economy, and that doesn't make sense unless they're about to collapse. The leverage is still here. Iran could shut it down. No, it's not. No, it's not. The leverage is not there. The leverage is no longer there. The leverage is no longer there. And and I explained why, because then it will look like Iran is the unchangeable one, the unreliable one. Iran was in a position where they were seen by everybody as the aggrieved party that was being attacked illegally, right? But now they have given up their right to close the strait, and they've declared to the world the strait is open. So now if they then close it, they have become the aggressor. They have given up their leverage and their position by now putting themselves into a position where, oh, if they close it, now they're the aggressor closing it, as opposed to responding to attacks. This is old. This analysis is old. Not relevant. And is it frustrating? I mean,
as we move into the weekend. Depends on what your perspective
is on American empire.
There is movement. There is breaking news on this front in this moment that clearly is getting reaction all over the world already. Elena, thank you very much. John?
Well, so interesting there, if we keep those numbers up for just a second. Huge drops in oil prices of more than 10%. That's just this morning. And then the stock market, an impressive positive opening, but to a certain extent, I think the stock market has already taken into account that a deal or progress was likely between the United States and Iran. But those drops in the oil prices, let's just keep those numbers up. You don't see movements like that almost ever. Now 11 points down just in the last 10, 20 minutes. We do have a new Trump.
I think a lot of people don't really know what that means, and they don't really have a good sense of what moves like that don't happen. So like when I'm looking at this, I have a long history of studying the
Social
markets and I
poster.
understand the implications of moves like that. Whereas if you're not very interested in markets, you don't really notice that. You don't really
So
get
I'm just
it.
going to read this to you. This literally just
This is
happened
like
a few
50 cents a gallon of gas, at least. So tomorrow, if you saw the gas, tomorrow if you wake up at your gas station and the gas price goes down 50 cents, is that a big number?
seconds ago, Donald Trump posting this. The Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage, but the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran only until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100%.
What are the market people saying?
Let's get to Pippa Stevens for more
This
on
is where I hate being me, because what I should do is just like I should do cope and wait for a couple days for everybody else to catch up and then be like, oh wow, and I should do like third world as spin cope bullshit and just lie to you guys and be embarrassing, but I just can't do that.
dramatic move this morning. Pippa.
Hey, David, so I think it's really important here that we focus on the full post from Iran's foreign minister, because he said that while the strait is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire, he also mentioned a coordinated route as announced by the regime, which doesn't sound like it is fully open. And CIBC's Private Wealth, Rekha Babin, noted that this market has been trading the headlines, the speed of the headlines, and not the certainty of flows, and that this move feels optimistic, especially as the market reprices the idea of reopening faster than it actually can reopen and the flows will resume. And President Trump also said on Truth Social just now that the blockade will continue, which again does not suggest a normalization of flows. Now, both WTI and Brent are below $90 and less than $20 above where they were prior to the war breaking out. We're also seeing big drops in product prices with gasoline and diesel futures tanking. European diesel is now at its lowest level in more than a month. And I did speak to Maersk this morning, and it was before the post from the Iranian foreign minister. So timing is important. But still, they said that there is no change in their approach and that they are not transiting the strait. So again, guys, clearly a big response in the market here, but we have not seen a resumption of flows. And it doesn't feel like flows will normalize anytime soon at this point.
So what are you reading and hearing, Pippa? Because, I mean, the ceasefire was agreed to, right, by Israel, Lebanon, and President Trump, imposed by President Trump. But Hezbollah wasn't involved in this. So I do wonder just how fragile.
I don't know why you're coming to these conclusions. The reason why I'm coming to these conclusions is the way that Iran government is communicating, not Trump. Trump could say all sorts of random bullshit, but when the Iranian government comes out and says the Strait of Hormuz is completely open, they have capitulated. You know what I mean? Like, and when it happens in the same week that the United States announces that they're going to be blockading the Strait of Hormuz, I'm not going off what Trump is saying. I'm going off what they're saying. Right, where they go, the Strait of Hormuz is completely open to commercial shipping. That is a sign that they are near to capitulation. If they had just stayed quiet, then I would have not changed my position. But because Iran government is kind of putting out these statements of like, hey, we're giving up our leverage. Okay, I accept it. And that's why you're seeing the big moves in the markets.
This is potentially.
I think fragile.
The markets are what matters for Trump. And I don't know if the Iranians don't know this or if they haven't been following politics, but when the markets go down, Trump gets scared, which is why he does so much to try to pump the market. But what Iran has done is helped Trump basically recover all of the losses that the Iran war had made in the stock market. Stock market is now back to where it was prior to the Iran war. So as far as leverage goes, they have none. And if you've watched Trump a lot, you understand that he's very sensitive to what the markets are doing. So what Iranians have done with this announcement, if they have basically given Trump even more runway to attack them. And, ultimately, it is what it is. Like, maybe I understand Trump's psychology better than they do. I don't know why that is, but it's just like, oh. And I've been saying this for a while, right? Like, obviously it's easier for me to Monday morning quarterback from my armchair the axis of resistance. But this has been analysis that has been going on for a long time, which is that Iran allowed each member of the axis of resistance to be defeated in detail. It is a strategic idea that I talk about a lot called defeated detail, where basically if you are facing an enemy that's stronger than you or an enemy that can threaten you, you try to defeat elements of the enemy one at a time in isolation to prevent them from massing against you. And what the Iranian government did, because they're so conciliatory toward the West, is they allowed Hamas to be and Gazans to be annihilated on their own without helping. They then allowed Hezbollah to be attacked and largely degraded without helping. Then they allowed the Houthis to be largely attacked and degraded without helping. And then they got attacked, right? Like the Iranians allowed each element of the axis of a resistance to be isolated and attacked and bombarded, and their capacity degraded each in turn. And then Iran was attacked. And so that's kind of why we've seen Israel being able to have so much success, with, annexing territory in Syria, doubling and expanding the settlements and annexations in the West Bank, continuing to, destroy the Gazan people, see them now expanding their annexations and attacks on Lebanon, especially southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River. So basically what we've seen is the fascists in America and Israel have continually been able to have success after success within their own strategic calculus, right? And the resistance forces have not been able to cost the attackers much in their own strategic logic. The only place that there's been any success has been in degrading Trump's approval in America and Israel's approval politically in America. Outside of that context, there has been, the United States, and, if we're being completely honest, Donald Trump has been able to basically destroy the post-war international law consensus in favor of great power domination geopolitics, with the United States as the only power that's doing it. So the United States is now able to Bigfoot its way around the world, doing whatever it wants, up to and including assassinations, kidnappings of world leaders, blockades, and attacks on sovereign territory with absolutely no pushback from anyone. That's the reality of what's going on. And I don't say this because I'm happy about it. I'm saying it because that's what's happening. I think this is bad. I think in the long run, it's going to cause even more fascistic behavior from many other countries. I don't think that the path to a good future is the United States acting as a global empire. But in many ways, I feel like Cicero watching Caesar invade fucking Gaul. Like, you may not know enough about Roman history to explain that for that to make any sense, but to try to quickly explain it, Julius Caesar, while he was the governor of Transalpine Gaul, which is like northern Italy area, he attacked a lot of Gaulish tribes in now France that were nominally allied to Rome and were paying them tribute. So Julius Caesar basically attacked countries that were in diplomatic relationships with Rome, and he conquered them and enslaved them and defeated them in battle and expanded Rome's direct control throughout all of France. And he actually invaded Britain as well. So a lot of Romans did not approve of that. They thought it was breaking Rome's, would hurt Rome's reputation that we attacked countries that were, or attacked, they attacked tribes and not countries, but tribes and political groupings that were nominally tributaries to Rome. And so that was part of why he was getting attacked by the Roman senators, was for breaking Roman law and attacking illegal warfare, basically. So a representative of Rome was attacking Rome's allies, basically. So, but that doesn't mean, but ultimately Julius Caesar became emperor or became dictator, and he destroyed all his enemies. Ultimately he got stabbed. We're not going to get into that. But politically, he wasn't able to, he didn't pay any consequences for it, right? He actually was more popular and more powerful because he took over Gaul, even though it was illegal under Roman Republic law at the time. Does that make sense? So that's basically similar to what Trump is doing. Trump is breaking all of our laws, of international and domestically, but the consequences are what? I mean, his popularity is bad in America, which is good. Americans don't like it. That's what's different between Julius Caesar and Trump, is that Julius Caesar was very popular in Rome because he was a populist, and he was trying, and he would give a lot of the profit directly to Roman citizens. And he also was trying to take away land and property from the rich and give it to the plebeian class. He wanted Roman citizens to have jobs and land, and he was trying to take it away from the oligarchs. Whereas in America, Donald Trump represents the oligarchs, so you're not going to get anything out of this. Anyway, long story short, sorry for the historical analogy. I thought I would explain it to you, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. Maybe Iran will go back on it and reclose the strait, and the pressure will be put back on the world economy. But we were weeks away from Europe running out of jet fuel. We were weeks away from major disruptions, physical disruptions in Asia. And what Iran has done is basically given up all that pressure.
Is the key word there, Sarah. And also, if you are a ship owner, you probably don't want to be the first one to send your crew through and to test the water, so to speak. And so there is probably not going to be a big surge to send your ships through, especially since it is a temporary ceasefire and there's still so many questions open right now.
She's right. By the way, this is the most intelligent counter argument, which is like, who's going to be the first person to go through the strait?
What's going to happen? Should the ceasefire expire, or should it be extended? And so again, you know, if you're a ship owner.
So if you're a person who's disagreeing with me, the only argument you have is, Mike, ships are not actually going to go through the strait. This is not going to hold up. And let's do the counter argument, which I think is a reasonable counter argument. That's not cope. Let's do the best counter argument. That's not cope. The best counter argument that's not cope is people are overreacting, because no ships are actually going to transit the strait, because Israel and the United States are going to break whatever terms have been agreed to. And can Mike reach at what? What are you saying that I'm not talking about? I'm literally giving you the analysis that I think is, which is reasonable, which is what Mandela effect is saying. Not quite. The opening is blown way out of proportion. There's physical limitations on how many are going through it. Asia and Europe will still face shortages. Yeah, but it's retroactive shortages, not prospective shortages. So how do I put that? If there is like a short-term disruption, as long as going forward it looks like there will not be, and that like markets are not going to act in that way. You get what I mean? Markets only react. Markets are forward-looking, not retroactive. So if it looks like the shortages are ending, then prices are going to stabilize and stay low. There is nothing solid here yet. That's where you're wrong. There is something solid. The Iranian government said the strait is open. That is solid. That's not vibes. That's what changed today. Before was vibes, and I disagreed with the vibes. And I was like, why are they going by these vibes that the strait is about to open? There's no evidence the strait is about to open. Then the Iranian government said the strait is open. That's where the vibes changed. That's where it's like, oh, okay. Well, now the vibes are that the strait is going to open. Now, maybe it's not actually going to open. Maybe Iran is going to go back on what they said. Maybe the ships won't actually leave because they're still scared. In which case, the markets will slowly go back down again, and this will just be a blip. That could happen. And that's what this lady is discussing as reality. I don't think so, because they must be. The reason why I say I don't think that's going to happen is because the Iranians must be very close to agreeing to something, because they posted the strait is open. Why the fuck would they say that unless they were about to agree to something? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm switching up on Iran right now, because they must be close to agreeing to something. And I can't imagine, but we'll see. Maybe Iran will have a win. Maybe the agreement will be a complete capitulation to Iran, in which case I'll go, oh, Iran won the war then. But that's not what's being floated. There's no evidence of that. All that's happening is maybe Iran will get $20 billion of its own money back. That's the only concrete point we heard. And this is also very, maybe it's because I look at what Iran is doing, and it seems to be that they don't understand Western society. And so they accidentally did this, and they don't really understand American society. They didn't understand that their only leverage was the sentiment of oil prices going, like oil shortages being imminent, and they gave it up without understanding that they gave up that which was their strongest, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's, and they have assassinated most of Iran's senior leadership, so maybe the people in power now are not as sophisticated
You're not really going to want to risk your crew. And we still have seen flows more than 90% below their pre-war levels. And the other thing is that even if the war were to end today, in order to get all the tankers back in position, that will take a while. You look at the number of VLCCs heading to the U.S. right now, it's at 70. That's up from an average of about 27 last year, according to data from Kepler. And so, once again, to have all those tankers U-turn and go back to the Strait will take some time. And so even once traffic has resumed, it will take a while for things to be normalized.
Well, that's why oil is not $60 or $50, right? Like, oil is going down to 80, but there's a reason why it's not 50 or 60. It's because of that. But it's certainly not it being at 150, right? Or 200. So, yes, there was a disruption. Yes, it has made prices go higher, but it hasn't. But Iran kind of gave up the doomsday scenario for the world economy for a 5-day ceasefire.
And the final point I'll make here is that if you are a producer and you've closed in some of your operations, given how expensive and how much time it takes to restart things like a refinery, you are not going to do that unless you have certainty that you can operate at full capacity. And so while the market is clearly taking this as indication that we could see a resumption of flows, there's going to be a while before things really normalize.
Not to mention as
She's
well,
right.
The blockade continues, the president making that clear. So Iranian oil will not be reaching the market. Is that fair to say, which obviously is different than it had been, because that had been the one thing that had been going through?
Exactly, and that's about 1.5 to 1.7 million barrels per day of exports. And there are some conflicting reports about the extent to which vessels are currently loading at Iranian ports. But of course, a lot of questions here about the extent to which Iran needs that revenue from their oil exports, and so how long they can sustain that oil not reaching the market. But guys, also, look at elsewhere, look at other choke points, whether you talk about Bab el-Mandab Strait or Malacca Strait over in Singapore, where China is building up their presence in the Scarborough Shoal. There are a lot of choke points here on global markets, and now people are saying that those are going to be repriced going forward, and that when flows do resume through Hormuz, there's going to be a new sense that these choke points around the world for key commodities.
I mean, Cuba has some pretty good choke points around the U.S., by the way.
For shipping will be repriced, and there'll be more of a little bit of a risk premium priced in, given that we've seen Iran can effectively close down the Strait of Hormuz.
I don't understand, Mike, today. What are you fucking talking about? Iran said the Strait of Hormuz is open. What do you mean you don't understand? What the fuck are you talking about? It's very straightforward. I think it's because, as things happen, it's hard to absorb them, and it's hard to take it in, and it's hard to, reevaluate. And I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make you understand it. I guess here's an example. Let's say that you're playing poker, right? And you have top set. You've got pocket aces, and the flop is ace 4-5, right? You've got pocket aces. You got the best possible, ace 5-6, so there's no straight. You have the best pocket possible hand right now. But there's still two more cards to come, okay? And then it comes out 7-8. So there's a 4-5, 7-8 out there. And somebody starts betting big against you. Now, you could be mad that you used to have the best hand, but if your opponent has 6-7, you're fucked. You used to have a good hand. New information happened. Your hand is not that strong anymore. In fact, it's probably beat. And that's what happened with Iran. They said the dumbest thing they could have said. So what do you want me to say? They did the dumbest shit they could have done. They gave up their leverage.
Pippa, thank you.
Let's start with MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid.
Here's Brent oil prices. If you want an idea of whether or not this was a good move by Iran. Was this a good move by Iran? Yes or no? Was this an intelligent move to maintain pressure on Europe and America? And the answer is no. I mean, there's no, if their goal was maintain leverage over the world economy so that we could get concessions from Iran and concessions from America and Israel, they gave it up. And the reasons why, I'd have to speculate. That's where the frustration comes in, because we don't understand why they made this decision. What happened is what is happening in order for them to make this decision. Worst timed golden kappa hype train in my entire life. Worst timed golden kappa hype train, because this is not a time people are feeling good about themselves or wanting to support the train. Worst timed golden kappa hype train. I hate days like today. I hate breaking news to people that they don't want to hear. It's where I feel the most depressed because I have certain ethics and beliefs about the way things should be. And telling you what I honestly believe is my number one value. And when things like this happen and you're like, you know, and it's bad, if you believe that the United States and Israel need to be constrained for the goal of international law and humanity to persevere, this is a bad day. Didn't Iran get sanctions relief? No. As far as I understand, they haven't gotten anything. But again, we'll have to see what the agreement is. Maybe Iran got the best agreement and the U.S. is pulling out of the Middle East and Israel is giving up the occupied territories and going back to the 1967 borders. And maybe the United States of America is going to sign the Rome Statute and pull out all of its forces from the Middle East. And, you know, maybe there's some amazing deal that I don't know, but I somehow doubt that that's what happened. Indonesia, U.S. announced new defense partnership. United States and Indonesia have announced the establishment of a new defense partnership aimed at maintaining peace and stability in Asia. Indonesian counterpart met with Pete Hegseth in the Pentagon yesterday. So in case you don't understand, this is very dangerous because there's something called the Malacca Strait, which is probably China's most vulnerable position on the entire world map. So this basically is a strategic a critical strategic threat to China's national security. Huge win for the United States.
Now contributor Inzamam Rashid in Dubai, MS Now's Kayla Gardner at the White House, and our military analyst, Medal of Honor recipient, Colonel Jack Jacobs. Inzamam, what more do we know about Iran's decision?
The West won the world not by the superiority of its ideas or values or religion, but rather by its superiority in applying organized violence. Westerners often forget this fact. Non-Westerners never do. Good sentence. Second sentence is incredibly false. Actually, I would say that the second sentence is the most false thing that has ever occurred. Western governments are acutely aware of the necessity for physical domination. They apply it every day. That's what NATO is. There's a reason why NATO is the most powerful military alliance in the world, because the Westerners understand that their power is derived from a barrel of a gun. Okay, Westerners, if you're talking about random people on the street, who gives a fuck? They're not the political decision maker. In fact, most Westerners love the military, especially Americans. Why do they love the military? Maybe they can't articulate why they love it, but the answer is that it means America can dominate the world and get the worst case scenario for America is we get a fair deal. The decision that like America either gets a fair deal or an unfair deal in our favor.
To open the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, Anna, it's a pretty remarkable decision and a significant one as well, and just gives you a sense that what a few words posted on X can do to the oil prices as we've currently seen. This is clearly a decision made by Iran on the back of discussions.
Did I fix the robot? Did I fix our robot? I've been roboting lately. What the fuck? No, yes, kinda, yes, no, yes, no, yes, fixed, yep, fixed, yes. Okay, cool. By the way, chat, we have a golden Kappa hype train. I'm sorry for the vibes being shit today because I think Iran made a major strategic mistake. And so my vibes are reflecting that. You could say that I'm overreacting to Iran's decision, but I'm just going by the way the world markets are reacting, right? And I think that the world markets are rational. I think in their reaction to this. Iran says the Strait of Hormuz is open. That causes the stock market in America to skyrocket and oil prices to crash globally. That was a huge mistake from Iran as far as their ability to strategically strangle the world economy. Now, maybe that's not going to end up happening and they're going to actually not allow the strait to be open. But by saying that, they have given Israel and the United States a second wind. And that's what I'm reacting to. I'm reacting to the implications of the United States and Israel getting a second wind, which is they're going to attack more places. They're going to do more genocides. They're going to do more invasions. They're going to do more blockades. They're going to do more crimes. And maybe I'm getting overexcited. Maybe I'm overreading into this decision by Iran. And fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe it will end up that this isn't the case, that the Strait really isn't open and the markets are overreacting and it's actually going to be Iran's tricking the U.S. and actually they're going to sink a bunch of ships and it's going to be an even bigger crisis. But what I see is, and that's why my analysis has been so dour today, because it looks to me like Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump have gotten exactly what they wanted. And I'm sorry, I don't like that. Theo, come look at this. Theo, come there. Mike, my only critique is you're interpreting that Iran saying the Strait is open as a sign of capitulation on Iran's part. Yes, it is. Of course, it's the most obvious sign. What the fuck are you saying? Oh, you left. Gosh, we're not in that. We don't have energy for a fun thing right now. But I get what you're saying. What do you mean? You're using this as a sign of capitulation because this is the side of capitulation. This is the ultimate side of capitulation. It's not that, again, I don't want this to be true, but that's what it's interpreted as by the West. You're saying it's not, but that's what it is. The Strait of Hormuz was Iran's strong point where everybody was like, say what you will about Iran. They control the Strait of Hormuz. And they just said, we give it up. It's open. That was their leverage point. That's why the markets are reacting with trillions of dollars of money changing hands, because everybody's saying, haha, Iran lost. That's what is happening in the world market. They're saying, haha, Trump pulled it off. That's what's happening. Now, you could disagree with that. You could say, actually, it's not. You could put on your copium goggles and huff it and say, actually, no, Iran hasn't given anything up. The Strait's really not going to be open. But that's just you. I mean, and that could happen. Iran could go back on their word and start sinking a bunch of tankers that try to cross the Strait. That could happen. And if that happens, the stock market will crash. But Iran will then look like an aggressor on the world stage, right? Iran will then look like an aggressor on the world stage. And there will be a lot more pressure on Iran, and a lot more third-party countries are going to come in and be like, Iran, what the fuck? You broke your word. And there will be a lot more propaganda about Iran. There'll be a lot less of a opposition to Iran. There'll be a lot less of an opposition to attacking Iran. More and more people will be like, well, maybe that regime does need to go, because now they said it was open, but then they attacked ships. You understand that they have now fucked themselves and they got nothing out of it that I can see, which means that I have to reevaluate all the things that I was looking at. I have to reevaluate. Oh, maybe the regime is closer to falling apart. Maybe there is something that's happening from China that's pressuring Iran. Maybe China is saying to Iran, you got to open the Strait. Maybe there's stuff that's happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of, that's not being reported, that puts the Iranians in a much worse position. And the reason why I'm analyzing it that way is because their decision was so bad for their own strategic interests that they must be in a much worse position than I thought. And if they didn't know that this was such a bad decision, and that means their competence is lower, which means they're also much more likely to be defeated because their competence is so low. They don't understand the way the world is functioning right now, which means they're not going to make the correct decisions to counter American efforts, right? So that's why my analysis has changed so dramatically today, because they did the thing that I didn't see that coming, which is announcing on a Friday that the Strait is open. Which is like, if Donald Trump was asking you to do anything, it would be, hey, the day before the markets close for the weekend, can you announce the Strait is open? Thank you. That would be the thing that you would do if you're trying to help Trump the most. So that's why my analysis is what it is. It's like, wow, this was really dumb.
Lebanon and Israel and the US have been having about pausing fighting there. It was a sticking point in the initial... And then
Trump, by the way, Trump came out and said, oh, by the way, we're going to be blockading Iranian ships. Trump came out and said, we're going to be blockading Iranian ships. So the Strait of Hormuz is not open for Iran.
Peace negotiations between the US and Iran, and now the decision has been made to essentially open up the Strait of Hormuz, that very narrow waterway where usually 20% of the world's oil usually passes through, which has been a huge sticking point over the last 7 weeks of this conflict. For many weeks now, Iran has had a chokehold of the economy by keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. And now The foreign minister of Iran, Saeed Abbas Araghchi, has said that in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire on the coordinated route as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So that will come as a huge relief, not only to the markets, but also the many thousands of seafarers that have been on the Strait of Hormuz, the entrance and around it over the last few weeks.
Chat, we have a golden Kappa hype trade, which gives you the opportunity to collect the coveted golden Kappa, which is an exclusive emote that you will be able to use site-wide on the entire website for an unbelievable 24 hours, which is about the time that the Iranian regime has remaining. No, just kidding. Anyway, chat, you have 20 seconds to sub, resub, gift a prime sub, gift at least one sub. Oh, an anonymous gifter has gifted 15 subs. Thank you, anonymous gifter. Holy shit. Chat, take advantage of supporting the stream with the Gold Kappa hype trade. I am so sorry. The vibes are good. The vibes are good, chat. Oil prices will be cheap for the summer. Just what Donald Trump needed for the midterms. Oil prices going down and stock markets climbing. Just what Trump needs for the midterms.
He's waiting to get a signal that they can pass through. We've got to remember as well, Iran has been specifically hitting
Thank you,
vessels
Solidarity, for the tier 3, brother.
The last 7 weeks, ever since this war began, targeting a number of ships, causing...
What level of hype trade for your first Metal Gear Solid playthrough? Vio, what Metal Gear? I haven't actually played Metal Gear. I don't know why. I guess I just never did. I just never played it. I'm doing my first playthrough and I'm shook you haven't. Like, what the fuck? I guess I just never played it. I don't know why. What the fuck? I'm a gamer, but I just never played it. I don't know what happened. It's worth it, but at your age and education level, you'll probably be underwhelmed. I mean, I am not underwhelmed. I liked Andor, for fuck's sake. I'm desperate for any content that is not brain dead. So, Leftist Gamer never played the classic Leftist game? Oh, is it the classic Leftist game? How about that? Have you heard of a little franchise called Call of Duty? Yeah, I played a little bit of Call of Duty. I'm not a big Call of Duty fan. I played Warzone. That was pretty good. I had a lot of fun playing Warzone. Will Neff, Nesua, myself, and this model named Margot, we used to play it during COVID. That was the height of COVID mic content. The problem is that it's like Pluribus, where there's plot holes you won't like, and they solve it with like magic. I wonder what happened to Margot. She was funny. She went back to being an international model and actress. What the fuck do you think? She was in fucking Legion. Who, Margot Robbie? You think Margot Robbie was a personal friend of mine, chat? I mean, I know I'm a Chad, but you think Margot Robbie is a friend of mine and Hassan's and Will's? I mean, that would fit, but
huge explosions causing deaths to a number of seafarers as a result. That has been a very dangerous and a very perilous waterway.
Chat, if we hit level, if we hit level, what's a good level? And I'll play Metal Gear Solid 3, which I think is what Vio is playing, right? She's playing the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Is that what she's doing? Level 20? There's no fucking way they're gonna pay for level 20. There's no fucking way they're gonna play level 20. How about we hit level 17? Level 16 or 17? Gremlins come through. We got 50 seconds, Vio. It ain't happening. Next week is Corpo bi-weekly paycheck. Wait until next Friday. Or I could just say you have 35 seconds or I'm not playing it. Or, oh, god damn it. You got a 5-minute reprieve. Son of a bitch. Steam has a Metal Gear Solid collect pack. The thing about gaming is I'm not a good gamer on stream. I just like to be locked in and quiet and like shut down my brain and play the game. I don't want to like talk to you guys and explain what I'm doing. I don't want to narrate and go like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, yeah, whoa. I don't like to do that. Metal Gear Solid is best played alone, to be honest. Have I ever tried Elden Ring? Yeah, I've played Elden Ring. Chat, we have a level 16 Golden Kappa hype train. Looks like I'm not playing it. We got close. Ham and Fist. Ori 81, Endless Mike, David CZ, Hammond Fist, Suicide Idol Icon, Anadol, DNA's Jarl, Soviet Cranberry, Luddite Cyborg, Ori 81 Borka, Soviet Cranberry again. So close. Drew, thank you for the 5. DA Grande, thank you for the tier 2. DPR 91, thank you for the 5. Juliet Home, thank you for the 5. Scott Princess, thank you for the 5. Anonymous Gifter, thank you for the 15. Root Z, Lisa, Dreadamax, Tin Sid. Can we get some bend and knees for Tin Sid's 25 bomb? Antiva, thank you for the tier 3. Calm Like a Tom, thank you for the 20. Jaeger Larson, thank you for the 5. Coding DNA, thank you for the 5. Molly McButter, thank you for the 5. Corrupt Save, thank you for the 5. The King of Wit, thank you for the 5. Who did? Hammond Fist? Can we get a bended knee for Hammond Fist, the king? Done by default, thank you for the 5. Hammond Fist has always been the long time. He's been the long time supporter of all the stream chat. Hammond Fist is just what a king, man. Thank you, brother. I just know that I really appreciate you, man. Saving CZ, thank you for the 10. Chips and Dip, thank you for the 5. Taylor Swift Juche, thank you for the 5. Okay, we have completed level 16, which was not the goal. The goal was to complete level 17. So we're close. We're close, but no cigar. The King of Wit dropped a 20 bomb! We haven't completed level 17 yet. We are 21 subs or 10,400 bits away. So close.
And over the last few days, this diplomacy has been taking place now to allow essentially this waterway to open up over the next 10 days of this ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel. What has the president said as a result? He first tweeted saying that the Strait of Hormuz was open, and then on his Truth Social posted that the Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage. But the naval...
All right, chat. Very close. 92%. We almost got it. We almost got it. That was pretty close. Not bad. I should have gone with 20. Why didn't I go with level 20? Son of a bitch. We have 6,666 sub points. Risky, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. Okay, we no longer have 6,666 sub points. Now we have 6,672.
Blockade, which is important, will remain in full force.
Level 20 to play Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3. There's no way you're going to make level 20. Level 20 would be like 150 more subs. Getting to the meat. Thank you for the tier 10 tier 1s. Getting to the meat. So for 150 more subs, that would be level 20. I think that's too many. You never said 17 means you finished the game. True. Open presents, come back.
As it pertains to Iran only, until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. This process should go very quickly in that most of the points are already negotiated. So this initial step, I think, a very positive one, Anna.
Kayla, tell us more about what you're hearing there at the White House and how the administration is responding, what it means for the path forward when it comes to U.S.-Iran negotiations.
I stand in awe of how many want you to do this. The thing is, like, Mr. Causinus, I think one of the things that people struggle with is understanding that 4,250 is 4,250 individuals. I think a lot of people struggle with that number. Like when you look at a number and it says 4,250, you kind of don't really understand that that's 4,250 people like you. There's 4,250 people with their phone or their computer open to the Central Committee stream right now. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to brag or anything. I'm just trying to get you to understand that that is actually real. So if like 30 people want me to play the game and give money, that seems like a lot, but it's actually less than 1%. Schmaltzy, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. Crowd sizes for visuals. This is why, like, when people go like, oh my God, I can't believe Hassan only has 30,000 people. This is a Hassan stream, okay? Hassan is sitting in the middle of this every day, and that's live concurrent. If you actually go and see, like, he gets like 1 million views per day. This is 180,000 people. So he gets like 5 times as many of these people per day. Go and watch Hassan. Okay. So for me, my stream is like this. This is actually smaller than my stream. I usually get around 60K views. I get between like, I get like somewhere around here per day on my content. And I don't say this to like, I don't say this because I'm trying to brag or anything. This doesn't sink into me either. Do you think if I went in front of this room that I would be chill? Do you think if I went in front of this room, I would be like, yeah, I'm going to wear my like burgundy t-shirt and that's it. I'll wear my burgundy t-shirt on stage today. No, it doesn't sink in. I have shorts on today, chat. They're lime green shorts. I have my lime green shorts on. Do you think I'd wear my lime green shorts and my burgundy t-shirt in front of this? No, fuck no. Why? Because, by the way, this t-shirt is too small as well. Why am I wearing it? Because I need to do laundry and it's Friday and I haven't. So it's laundry day shit. After the stream, I'm going to start doing laundry. That's literally my afternoon plans. Oh, I'm also meeting with Claire Valdez's team, who's running for Congress. I'm meeting her team after the stream. What am I doing? I'm doing laundry, and then I'm meeting Claire's team. So I'm gonna bring her on because she was already on Hassan's stream, so I need to bring her on my stream. Am I doing an Abdul stream? They wanted to do one with me before they got attacked for Hassan. I don't know if they want. I think Abdul himself messaged me on his main account and I didn't see it. And then he got attacked for Hassan. And then I messaged him back. Tell Oliver to stop making cringe. Oliver's killing it. What are you talking about? Oliver's killing it. Also, you expected one of my fans to not be like this? The first thing you see after you move to Florida, he's fucking cooking. The one thing that's really good about the one thing that's really good about being a millennial is that if you're an older millennial, you are comfortable being cringe. Whereas younger millennials and Gen Z are very worried about being cringe. And I think those of us who are old, like we were able to, I was an adult before social media panopticon. So I did a whole bunch of cringe shit and then it just went away. So I could remember some cringe shit I did and I could chuckle about it and move on. Whereas with Gen Z, you guys are like under a panopticon where you do something cringe, somebody records it and posts it, and then it goes viral and then it's associated with you for the rest of your life. It's very normal to be worried about that. I mean, I have a moment where I was cringe. People use moments of me being cringe to try to attack me. I honestly don't give a shit. I'm free. You can never make me feel cringe. It's so awesome to be cringe. 1 minute left in the hype trade, chat. We are at level 19. God damn it. If we actually hit level 20, I'll play games on VO stream. Big Carbon, thank you for the tier 1s, the 10 tier 1s. Silver Pros, thank you for the 10, for the 20. Tally Q, thank you for the 10. Goof Sukup, thank you for the 5. Round Brow, thank you for the 5. VO's channel is VO's channel, but it's also kind of like, it's our channel. It's our relaxed channel. It's our be chill channel. I like to be silly on VO stream. It's a side of me that I don't usually put out there. You know, I get to be silly on VO stream. Mike's claiming VO shit. No. It's all VO stuff. I just get to be silly. Everybody, what you have to understand about everyone is that you just want to be a silly little guy sometimes. The irony is that when people let go and accept the cringe, not only are they more confident, but go viral and opportunities open up for the moment. I mean, that's not always true. But one thing I can say is that I never hold back. I'd rather be embarrassing, but authentic to myself than always worried about the way I'm going to come off. And sometimes it backfires. Sometimes I'm a bit of a douchebag and I'm like, ugh, that person does not like me. 11 subs left to the next stage. Holy fuck, we actually hit level 20. God damn it. We're 11 subs away from level 20. God damn it. If people are mad at me for my position on Iran, just understand this. I believed, and I want you to understand this, I am so thoroughly against the American empire that you can't be more against it than me. I hold back from what I want to say because of the position that I hold. And I wish I could say more, but I can't. Okay? And the reason why I can't is because I have enough popularity that I can help people run for office like Oliver. And it's more important to me that guys like Oliver win than I say what I wish I could, what I want to say about the American empire. Okay. And so that's just that's the compromise that I have to make, unfortunately. Not bad, but I disagree. Very against the empire too, but they've showed expert decision making so far. Going to give the benefit of the doubt for now. The Iranians have not shown expert decision making. The only thing that Iran did that was effective is the development of the Shahid drone. The development of the Shahid drone is the one thing that Iran had going for it. Other than that, they've played this strategically very poor. They allowed their proxies to be eliminated one by one and isolated and attacked, and they stayed dormant. And they waited until Israel committed horrible fucking war crimes before they even began fighting back at all. And now they gave Trump his fucking dream of saying the Strait of Hormuz is open on a Friday, relieving all the pressure on Trump and Israel so they could do fucking genocide over the weekend. Like, what the fuck are you doing? This is a total... The U.S. will get all nuclear dust created by our great B-2 bombers. No money will exchange hands in any way, shape, or form. That's what Trump is saying. I don't think that's accurate.
Through some of those True Social posts, which
Super
notably...
Dario, thank you for the... My God, guys, thank you so... Super Dario, thanks you for the 15 gifted subs. You're the best. Can we get some bended knees for Super Dario and Tin Sid, an anonymous gifter, and Mellow Lemon Jello, and Melon Jelly, and Will Wright, Mad Dude Messiah, the Harmoon, Big J Dog, Chunk Yogurt, Delta, Round Brow, Goof Sukum, and Silver Pros with a huge 20 bomb. What the fuck, everybody? Big Carbon, thank you for the 10. Tally Q, thank you for the 10. It's me, your dog. Thank you so much. Ridiculous, thank you for the gift. Another anonymous 20 bomb. Big Carbon, Jelly, Cream Tart. You guys are the best. Mark Strongbow, thank you for the subs. It's me, your dog. Thank you for the 10. Getting to the meat, thank you for the 10. Risky 7, thank you for the 5. Soviet Cranberry, thank you for the 5. Big Carbon, thank you for the 10. A Wild Bearcat, thank you for the 5. Is there any... The King of Wit, thank you for the 20. Is there anybody I didn't thank? Is there anybody I didn't thank? Snap Crackle, thank you so much.
Both happened after the market opened, and I think a key part of that second True Social post that the president talked about
Thank you
was
so
this
much,
line where he
man.
says,
Appreciate
such
you.
a time until our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. So what does that word transaction mean? It could be potentially a financial transaction. Iran has notably asked for payment to cover the cost of war damages to rebuild their country. It could also be discussing a transaction of uranium. The president has talked about Iran agreeing to hand over some of their uranium. But just a few minutes ago, the president posted again on True Social, and he's saying no money will exchange hands in any way,
I'm on a 100 stream streak. Hell yeah, brother.
He also says that the U.S. will get all, quote, nuclear dust that was destroyed by, he says, by B-2 bombers. So the president seems to be clarifying there that the U.S. does not intend to hand over money to Iran, and that they do intend to get that underground uranium, which the U.S. has been so concerned about.
Thank you, brother.
And the president also in that same post saying Israel will not be bombing Lebanon any longer. Colonel Jack, that's important because this Israeli-Lebanon ceasefire seemed to be a trigger for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. But that ceasefire is fragile. The ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is fragile. The strait was seen as leverage for Tehran. Is there still risk for ships to transit?
There's plenty of risk. And one of the most interesting points about it all is that polls indicate that the Israeli citizens don't want the attacks on Hezbollah to cease. They want them to continue. They want Hezbollah eliminated. And it looks like Netanyahu yielded to pressure from the White House to cease fire so that the United States could declare the strait open and to facilitate American negotiations with Iran to end the war altogether. But in the meantime, Israel still has this buffer zone that's not big enough to protect citizens in northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks. It's really complicated, and all this stuff has to happen all at the same time. Hezbollah has to give up. The arrangements between the United States and Iran has to be concluded, and all within 10 days.
Yeah, not much time at all. Inzamam, take us through more of the terms of this Israel-Lebanon ceasefire.
Well, Anna, this is a ceasefire that's being celebrated in Lebanon, quite literally. People on the streets celebrating, and that's because...
I mean, I don't blame... I mean, obviously, they're being fucking genocided, so I'm glad for the people of Lebanon. But it's only 10 days. It's not a formal agreement. And also, what's to hold Israel or America to any agreement that they make on paper? What is the like guarantee of American compliance? Can't they just take material concessions and then just go back to attacking you? The Strait is the guarantee. The United States just spent over a month attacking Iran with the Strait, and it didn't seem to stop anything.
We've had more than 1.2 million people displaced as a result of the fighting and the
Thank you
bombardment.
guys so much for the fucking hype train. That was insane. Show me your golden kappas. If you got a golden kappa, spam it.
Inside Lebanon, more than 2,000 people have been killed, and now we're seeing some of those people return. And yes, look, it might only be for 10 days, but I think people get a sense of positivity that these discussions are being had and that this ceasefire is taking place. But as you mentioned, it is very, very fragile, and I think that's a huge concern. Let's go through some of the key points. Well, Israel, the initial point is that Israel pauses its offensive operations inside of Lebanon, that Lebanon as a government takes meaningful steps to prevent Hezbollah operations in response to Israel, that there is recognition that Lebanon security forces have that exclusive responsibility for national defense, and that the US facilitates these direct negotiations aiming for some form of a comprehensive peace agreement. Right now, there are still, though, Israeli forces inside of Lebanon, a number of ground troops in the south of Lebanon. And leading up to this ceasefire, there was intense bombardment by Israel inside Lebanon. Many people were killed as a result of that. And that just gives you a sense of the real fragility of this. What has Benjamin Netanyahu said in retaliation? Well, he said that we've got two fundamental demands for these peace talks between Israel and Lebanon. First, the disarmament of Hezbollah. That's one thing that Israel has been very strict on. That's something that they need and want. And second, a sustainable peace agreement. Hezbollah insisted on two conditions. First, that Israel must withdraw from all Lebanese territory. Second, a ceasefire based on the quiet for quiet model. I agreed to neither of those. So I think long-lasting peace negotiations still very much hang in the balance, but it's something that the US president is pushing for. And I think that if there are talks between the US and Iran in the coming days, then this is something that they'll definitely be discussing to ensure that it's on the agenda to make sure that there's peace inside Lebanon for those people, but also that Hezbollah, essentially a terrorist organization in the eyes of Israel, don't respond and target to Israel in the way they have been doing over the last 7 weeks, Anna.
Colonel Jack, Hezbollah was not part of these negotiations. The negotiations or talks between Israel and Lebanon. Hezbollah is this organization that operates inside Lebanon, the Lebanese government saying they will take meaningful steps to prevent Hezbollah from attacking Israel or going on offense, essentially. But do they have much influence or capability to rein in Hezbollah, especially given the weakness of the Lebanese armed forces?
No, they don't. But there are two vectors here to keep in mind. One is Israel on the one hand, and the other is Iran. We have to remember that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. To the extent that some sort of peace arrangement can be made with Iran under whatever circumstances that are negotiated, that may have a direct impact on whether or not Iran will be able to continue to supply and motivate Hezbollah to continue what it's doing. So these are, it sounds like they're artificially interrelated, but they're not. They're really interrelated principally because Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. And a peace agreement with Iran may directly drive a circumstance in which the Lebanese government will not have to police its own area, and Israel will have some sense of security. On the other hand, the fact is that the Israeli people, the voters who keep Netanyahu in office, are not particularly interested in relying on the Lebanese government to rein in Hezbollah, which is why Israel's been highly motivated to go as far as it possibly can into Lebanon. As a matter of fact, all the way to the Litani River, south of which Hezbollah has for years been able to operate without any interference from the Lebanese government. So the short answer is no. The Lebanese army is not capable of policing it themselves, but a comprehensive arrangement among the United States, Israel, Lebanon, and Iran may in fact be able to rein Hezbollah in.
We know Israel.
So, I mean, you know, the reason why I'm watching this is because I wanted to get the reaction from the Zionist centrists in America, and they seem very pleased with what Trump has pulled off here. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say, right? Like,
is demanding disarmament of Hezbollah. Is that goal realistic? I'm thinking about Hamas, and it hasn't been disarmed.
No, and I don't think that we can expect Hezbollah to disarm either. On the other hand, if Israel can be convinced that Hezbollah is not going to be able to be a factor, is not going to be able to threaten Israelis in the northern part of the country, then it may all work. We have to remember that things like this are always done in phases, like a military operation. Step number one is to do what we've seen today. Next step will be agreement on certain aspects, but not all aspects of what the countries would like to have. And ultimately, the demands that Hezbollah give up altogether may become moot if there is some control by Iran over Hezbollah to keep it from being a terrorist organization, continuing to be a terrorist organization.
Netanyahu must be so tired. Someone should help him get some sleep. I mean, I don't know. Why would he be tired? Why would he be tired? I guess you can only get so tired. I don't want to say what I'm thinking.
Lots to discuss.
Because the vibes are so bad that I don't even want to say it.
Yes, let's bring in MS Now senior national security reporter David Rode. MS Now's Inez de la Cuetera in Paris.
I've never felt like, you know, if I'm being completely honest, this is part of the problem of trying to align yourself with far-right nationalist forces, even in decolonial struggles. They're just self-interested, you know? It is what it is. And you know, it's a disagreement that I have with other, you know, some left-wingers think that, you know, in a decolonial struggle that you can't pick and choose and you can't say like, hey, such and such a grouping is actually, you know, opposed to my political worldview. And it's like, you know, the IRGC are, you know, reactionary right-wing theocrats who support, you know, capital. They just represent the national bourgeois of Iran, you know, and they want to be able to assert themselves independently of Western domination, right? And that's, you know, that project, though it's vulnerable to the type of coercion that we're seeing.
For the Council on Foreign Relations.
As opposed to China, who's not self-interested. China is operating in a completely rational, non-interventionist method, even when intervention would probably be beneficial for them. So if anything, you could look at China and say they're doing exactly what they say they're going to do at all times.
Elisa Ewers and New York Times chief White House correspondent, MS Now contributor Peter Baker. David, walk us through all these different updates from the president this morning on Iran.
So there's a lot here. And in general, this is good news. The ceasefire in Lebanon is good news. And if the Strait is reopening, that's great news. We've actually put together a graphic because the president, to help viewers, had said so many things this morning. So I just want to read through each of these points on what he's saying. So first, at the top of your screen, Iran and Trump claim the Strait of Hormuz is open to traffic. The one cautionary note on that announcement is that the Iranian foreign minister said in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon. That is a signal that Iran will keep the Strait of Hormuz open as long as there is a ceasefire in Lebanon. This is one of their key conditions. So the president might have been exaggerating a bit here. He confirms the naval blockade will remain in effect for Iran. The U.S. will do that. That's a way to keep pressure on the Iranians. Claims the U.S. will get nuclear dust and that no money will be exchanged hands for it. That's in response to a news report from Axios, which said that the U.S. might be giving up some of these Iranian assets that are frozen abroad that Iran's been asking for years. President Obama gave them back some of that money. Trump is denying that, but I think the Iranians will demand that money. This is Iranian money that was frozen years ago, and they claim they want it back. And then lastly, says Israel will not bomb Lebanon anymore. The issue there, as we just saw, the statement from the Israeli defense minister saying things are not yet completed. He attacked NATO allies for not helping open the Strait of Hormuz. I think it would be good if he would allow them to help. The more Navy ships, NATO or U.S., that can accompany tankers, the more they will leave. They want to be secure when they leave the Strait of Hormuz. There's still reports of mines there. Iran, with the assistance of the U.S., has removed or will remove all mines. I hope that will happen. We have no confirmation from the Iranians on that side. And then lastly, claims Iran will never close the Strait of Hormuz again. As I said at the beginning, Iran has not said that. They have said as long as the ceasefire continues in Lebanon, the strait will remain open.
If these are all true, these are major deals, but we don't know for sure what the true status is and what the official line is at this point. None of it appears to be confirmed other than the strait being back open from Iran. Elisa, the strait was Iran's ace. Now the president is saying they will never close it again. He also says the naval blockade on Iranian ports is still in effect. Why would Tehran agree to any of this?
I don't think that they have, Anna. I think that this is the narrative game that both sides are playing in building leverage going into potentially another round of talks. We have the April 21st deadline that might get extended. There are rumors of talks again in Islamabad at some level that might be coming online here soon. So I think this is really all about building the leverage. The problem with Iran's ace in the hole on the Strait of Hormuz is that it can't be undone, right? The fact that it can hold the strait at risk without blocking a single vessel is not something that you can just erase. And so this is leverage they're going to continue to use in any negotiations moving forward.
And I'm just getting a readout from the president's new interview, it sounds like, with News Nation. He's making phone calls as he's tweeting all these things out. And here's what this reporter from News Nation just put out on X, David. Breaking. I just spoke with President Trump on the phone from Las Vegas, and I asked him about the stream of Truth Social posts. I got right to the point. I asked the president if Iran agreed to stop enriching uranium. This reporter from News Nation writes, yes, he told me. He says he followed up with, they agreed to stop enriching uranium. The president responding, they agreed to everything. Yes, are you surprised? I asked, are you surprised? He told me, I'm not surprised by anything. Then he said, I'll see you later. The call ended. Your thoughts?
No Iranian confirmation of that claim by the president. And we want to be cautious here. Look, it's great progress, Lebanon opening up the strait, but there's been no public statement that I have seen that Iran has agreed to stop enriching uranium.
And Peter, President Trump is sounding very happy in these posts this morning, according to this interview. That was
right, because he got what he wanted. He wanted Iran to say the Strait of Hormuz is open on a Friday, so that the markets would skyrocket and oil prices would crash. He got exactly what he wanted. Like, Iran gave Donald Trump exactly what he wanted. Like, so hopefully they got something back.
Reported out from News Nation. Yesterday, we heard him make bold predictions regarding oil and the Strait of Hormuz. Let's listen.
I think we have a very successful negotiation going on right now. And I think it'll be, if it happens, it'll be announced fairly soon. And that'll give us free oil, free Hormuz Strait. Everything will be nice. And I think your oil price will go down to lower than what it was before.
Peter, are you hearing anything about Trump's claim there of free oil? Does the White House think this is going to immediately alleviate the pain at the pump?
Well, look, obviously it's had an impact very quickly on the markets, very quickly on the oil markets. The price is heading down, as you rightly showed. He is so eager to get this war behind him, to get the markets back on track as he sees it. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on the part of his Republican allies to be able to define a way of getting out of this war. He wants to be able to do it while declaring victory. What he outlined today would certainly sound like a victory. I think, as David says, we have to wait and see, how it actually plays out. We have his claims. He often says things, and then things don't turn out to be quite the same as he described them, or things change. So we do need to be cautious at this point. But what he has described is something that has encouraged, obviously, a lot of people, including the investors, including the oil markets.
Inez, the alarm bells were sounding there in Europe yesterday as the International Energy Agency warned that Europe could run out of fuel in as soon as 6 weeks. How are leaders there reacting to this news?
Hey, Anna. Yeah, critical discussions being held here in Paris today to talk about reopening the Strait of Hormuz, chaired by the French President Emmanuel Macron and the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who announced moments ago that together with Germany and Italy, they would be launching a multinational force to ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. We heard from Macron moments ago talking about how he welcomes news that the strait is reopening. He says this initiative will help ensure that the strait stays open. So the Europeans there potentially trying to appease President Trump, who, of course, has repeatedly called on them to do more to secure the strait. But President Trump, you guys mentioned it off the top, lashing out at NATO allies today. So I'll read you the Truth Social post. He says, now that the Strait of Hormuz situation is over, I received a call from NATO asking if we would need some help. I told them to stay away unless they just want to load up their ships with oil. They were useless when needed, a paper tiger. So we'll see what comes of that. We know European leaders today at that summit are also discussing the economic consequences of the war in Iran. They're worried about things like inflation, food shortages, and the possibility that they could be running out of jet fuel and that there could be flight cancellations. We heard from the head of the International Energy Agency just yesterday saying that Europe just has 6 weeks worth of fuel left because Europe imports about 75% of its jet fuel from the Middle East. So we'll see, now that the strait is reopened, whether the situation gets resolved. I will say, though, it's likely that major shipping companies will want to wait a little bit and ensure that the ceasefire really holds up for a sustained period before they fully resume their activities. So it could still be a little while before things get back to normal.
David, turning to Lebanon and Israel, there's a very fragile ceasefire in place between these two countries. What's the latest on that front?
It is holding, and that's the most positive thing. But you've got the rhetoric from both Hezbollah and Israel saying they're ready to resume this if needed. But this is a huge step forward. More than 1,000 people have died there. Nearly 1 million are displaced. And the fact that Lebanese are heading back towards these villages in the South Lebanon is a positive sign. I think the broad outlines of a deal are here, in that you have a ceasefire in Lebanon, the Strait of Hormuz opens up, and then the U.S. has to work out some deal with the Iranians. The Iranians, according again to this Axios report, are still asking for some type of uranium to be kept. They want some very low-level enriched uranium to use for medical experiments. This is all.
I saw an economist say that it will take at least 2 years to get back normal oil production. It's not a matter of just flipping a switch. And who does that profit? I want you to imagine that you are a capitalist and you are in the oil and gas industry. What capitalists right now are not being disrupted? The United States of America, Russia. So elevated price. Did anything happen in the United States oil and gas industry to raise the costs of production or refining of our oil and gas products? So your costs for producing oil have not gone up, but the supply by your competitors has gone down, which will result in what? Higher baseline prices for your production. In other words, American oil and gas companies are going to see much higher profits in the short term. However, the Iranian production and the flows from the Strait of Hormuz are not restricted. So you'll see a period of restricted but not shortages. So higher prices for the producers that are unaffected. Seems like a W for the American oil industry. Not for you and me, we're consumers. So I don't really, listen, you're right about that. I don't think this is going to be good for the world economy, but it's good for the capitalists that are aligned with Trump. Is this conflict essentially over? Did the evil empire win? No, it's not over, because I think Israel is looking to annex more of Lebanon. So basically, Israel, as part of the greater Israel project, is looking to annex everything south of the Litani River. I'm trying to find. Sorry for that. I'm trying to explain this. If you look at the Litani River, you see this territory here. It gives. It's in red. It allows. This territory here gives Israel a significant. It's more of a defensible position, and it would be a significant portion of Lebanon, right? And so because Lebanon does not have a government that is capable of defending itself, it just has Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the only force that's interested in defending the territorial integrity of Lebanon. What's happening right now is Iran is giving up its leverage against the world economy And Israel is preparing for a longer-term territorial annexation of Lebanon, similar to what's happened in Syria.
Complicated and a long debate, but under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, countries are supposed to be able to do that. Countries do that by importing uranium from other countries. That's one way this could go forward. And then there is this issue of this Iranian money. It is their money. It was frozen overseas when there were past difficulties. So the outlines of a deal are here, but we are not there. And I think some of the things the president said are overstatements.
Elisa, Trump saying the U.S. will not allow Israel to bomb Lebanon anymore. That's pretty direct. It sounds like a message directly to Netanyahu. How do you think that's going to play in Tel Aviv?
Well, I mean, I think Israel's made some pretty significant military moves toward Lebanon already leading up to this fragile ceasefire of only 10 days. And so I don't know what no bombing looks like. It certainly means that Israel is retaining a significant portion of territory in the south. It has decimated parts of Beirut, central and downtown Beirut, and was having activities in other parts of the country. So I think it's a message that the president wants to see if he can get to a deal with Iran and understands that the Lebanon portion of this is something that it is integral to getting that deal. I don't know that this fragile ceasefire in Lebanon can hold out. Hezbollah obviously ready to resume if Israel makes any moves. So what's really going to be important here is that the framework for moving forward for Lebanon, independent of a deal with Iran, is set. We saw that meeting in Washington earlier this week. Secretary of State made all of the right statements with respect to getting that framework underway, but that's not going to happen overnight. The politics of this in Beirut are difficult. The politics in Jerusalem even more difficult. So it's going to require some very steady hand and some concentrated work by the U.S. And it's not clear to me that we're in it for the long haul from this administration to make that happen.
Didn't Iran say that the Strait is open following a specific travel path? I didn't see anything about it paying tolls. We have the, you know, why I didn't see any evidence that there was going to be tolls collected, unless you guys have proof of that. Let me pull up some Al Jazeera coverage of it, because, like, you know, my reaction is that it looks to be a huge gift to the Trump administration by Iran. Here's a report from Lebanon.
We are in the town of Tibnin in southern Lebanon, and it is a scene of mass destruction here. The town was in a place that received a lot of airstrikes and artillery strikes from Israeli troops fighting a battle in the city of Bint Jbeil, just a few kilometers away. But what you're seeing is this scene of mass destruction in front of the Tibnin hospital, one of the only currently operational hospitals in southern Lebanon. Israel has conducted strikes on hospitals throughout the country, damaging or destroying over 60 medical facilities. But this one is the only one currently operating in southern Lebanon. You can see the amount of destruction on these cars covered in shrapnel and rocks. There's also this business here, a small business. We saw the young lady going through her products. She sells children's clothes, and she's been here now for about 20 minutes going through what's left of her shop. The rest of the building has also been destroyed. You see the roof is now slanted over the backside of the building there, and you can see how this young lady is overwhelmed with emotion going through what she's built over time with a lot of effort and money, and now all of that has been reduced to rubble, all for the sake of Israel, who is now occupying Lebanese territory. My cameraman has now put the camera towards this hill you see, and behind that hill, Israeli troops are still present. They are occupying dozens of Lebanese towns and villages, and they say they're not going to leave. But people here are only concerned right now about returning and finding out what's left of their lives. They've experienced multiple wars. This one has been unique in the sense that the destruction happened in a very short amount of time, a massive amount of destruction, a huge displacement in a very short period of time. Over 1 million Lebanese people displaced from their homes. As they slowly return, they're going to find their communities shattered, much like this one. But they say that they're going to continue to rebuild. Obaida Hito, Al Jazeera, Southern Lebanon.
More now with CNN global affairs analyst and Iran expert Kareem Sajapur. Also with us, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark. To both
Okay, first thing that I've seen that indicates Iran has gotten anything with the retreat of the evil American regime and the acceptance of ceasefire in Lebanon, some commercial ships will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz upon payment of tolls. Claim of a naval blockade by the vile Yellow Dog has been rendered a joke and preemptive failure following the passage of Iranian oil tankers in recent days.
Thanks very much for joining us. And Kareem, let me start with you on this major news from the
I don't consider that to be reliable information, chat.
Iranians announcing that the Strait of Hormuz is, in their words, completely open. It's been a source of leverage for Iran for some time now. What do you think? Does this suggest a peace deal, a real peace deal, could be imminent?
Wolf, President Trump obviously wants to try to end this 47-year conflict with Iran in several weeks. But in my view, that's not going to happen. You still have the same regime which wants the United States as an adversary. A more narrow agreement on just the nuclear issue is possible, but there's no signs that Iran is prepared to change its conduct. And on the Strait of Hormuz, what they found is that that's an incredible tool of leverage for them. They agreed to open it now in exchange for Israel ceasing its military operations in Lebanon. But in the future, if Israel resumes its military operations in Lebanon, they may well try to stop traffic in the strait again.
Well, what's going to happen if Hezbollah in Lebanon starts firing rockets and missiles towards northern Israel, which they've been doing?
There are so many saboteurs in this equation, not only Lebanese Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq, and individuals within the Iranian Revolutionary Guards who actually want to prolong the war for their own internal expediency.
I stand by. I want to bring in General Clark. General Clark, in announcing the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian foreign minister said vessels...
That sounds like a Shahist to me, chat.
Must still transit through what they call a coordinated route laid out by Iranian authorities. Is it unusual at all that Iran would be determining this?
Well, it's absolutely unusual. It's unprecedented, and it's illegal. And so this is an international waterway. They have no right to do this. But there still may be mines out there, and those mines have to be cleared. Someone has to certify that the mines are cleared. But Wolf, in addition to that, as Kareem was saying, this situation will never go back to what it was before, because what's happened is Iran has exercised a weapon, and that weapon is still there. It's still like an axe hanging over international commerce and diplomacy in the region. And they've seen how powerful it is. And I think we also have to look at the role of China in this. When Pakistan's coming in and helping to broker this and convincing China is behind Pakistan. The Saudis are working with Pakistan. It's a temporary fix. Yes, it should be open. It should be open for China because they're the biggest beneficiary of it, and the Iranians know it, and they can't keep it closed. But there's been a real demonstration of strategic power here by the Iranian regime. So I just second what Kareem has to say. Lots of saboteurs out there, lots of potential pitfalls in the future.
Certainly are. Kareem, the U.S. Navy currently has a blockade that went into effect a few days ago on Iran in the Strait that President Trump says will remain in full force, but only as it pertains to Iran, his words, only as it pertains to Iran. How does this impact the country?
So Iran is a country under dire economic straits. Even before this war, it was probably the most sanctioned country in the world. Now it's endured probably tens, if not over $100 billion in damages as a result of this war. And that's one of the reasons why there are folks within the government who don't mind prolonging the war, because once there is a longer-term ceasefire, they will face an incredibly aggrieved population.
No doubt about that. General Clark, we're about a day into that 10-day proposed truce between Israel and Lebanon. Hours after it started, though, the Lebanese army accused Israel of violating the ceasefire. The conflict in Lebanon has been a key sticking point.
Even if they got to impose tolls, is that a good enough concession? If Iran was able to actually collect tolls from every ship that transited the Strait of Hormuz at the level that they were charging, that would be 10 times the size of their military. So that would be a pretty big concession. Terrible panel. Yeah. Pro Shah versus warmonger with Zionist. And by the way, Wolf is also a Zionist. So we've got 3 Zionists on the screen.
All the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. Is Israel playing into Iran's hands here if, in fact, it's violating the ceasefire?
Yeah, of course it is. And but Iran has never had Hezbollah come back and acknowledge the ceasefire. So Hezbollah is a third party left out. At any time, Hezbollah could launch a couple of rockets, and you can't take away Israel's right to defend itself. Israel has that right, and I know that there are many in Israel today who are perplexed by this. We signed, we're going to get an agreement with Lebanon, and what about Hezbollah? We were going to get rid of Hezbollah. They're still there. What restrictions will emerge on Iran's support of Hezbollah as we try to wrap this up with a complex, complete diplomatic agreement? And if there are no such restrictions, seriously, we're still in the danger zone, Wolf.
No doubt about that. The danger zone continues. General Clark, thank you very much. Kareem Sajapur, thank you to you as well.
Well, oil prices are trading at their lowest level in 5 weeks following the earlier announcement by the Iranian foreign minister. Let's discuss with Richard Quest, CNN business editor-at-large and anchor of Quest Means Business. So, Richard, we're seeing this significant drop in prices. But as they say in the real world, what's changed?
Oh, I think quite a lot has changed. The sentiment has changed. If you look at the developments over the course of the day, there is a view that there is more of a willingness to move forward towards peace. Now, I get the point that you're making. What's changed factually, of course? Nothing. And that's why, although I say the willingness and the trend and the mood has changed, this fall that we're looking at the screen is entirely justifiable and predictable, and it is equally reversible if the trend does not continue, if the mood movement doesn't change, if, for example...
I think this is absolutely true. I think this is absolutely 100% true. And I think I think the good faith people that have been disagreeing with me today, I agree with you on this. If Iran tomorrow does and closes the strait, yes, oil prices and markets will crash. Oil prices will skyrocket, markets will crash. You're absolutely right about that. The problem with that is that they will have changed themselves from victim to aggressor. So it's not, I'm not saying that Iran has given up their geographic, strategic, position and ability to threaten the strait. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is they gave Trump exactly what he wanted to prolong the war. They gave Trump exactly what he wanted to prolong the war. And I think that's why I call it a blunder, because Iran, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen anything that they've been given that's material and real that would justify giving Trump and Israel exactly what they needed to prolong the war. So that's why I've been calling it a blunder today. I haven't seen anything that justifies this. Why did Iran let off the pressure? Why did Iran give Trump the sentiment boost he needed? It doesn't make sense to me, because it doesn't seem like they've gotten anything in return. And a 10-day ceasefire, 10 days is going to go by like that.
Blockade remains and no oil flows out. That's the reality here. It's going to be a case of wait and see if the ships actually move. Talk all you like. We want to see the ships.
We want to see the ships, and you have Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies, saying that they've noticed Iran's announcement on the Strait of Hormuz, and then they go on to say the safety of our crew, vessels, and customers' cargo remains our top priority. That doesn't signal that they are ready to set sail, all things being back to normal.
No, and they won't be, and however many ships they've got caught in the upper Gulf, they will remain there. But let's just say the Iranians start to give exactly those guarantees. No, you can go forward, no toll. Let's just say, I'm speculating, you can go forward. But you've still got the Americans in the Arabian Gulf outside. You've still got them waiting with their blockade to move things forward. So, and the price that you're looking at now is predicated on actual real oil ships moving. If they don't, that price...
I think my feeling about Trump is he's the luckiest man to ever live. He himself is a dumb piece of shit. But he has a superhuman ability to identify weak victims. He's like the ultimate predator. He knows who to bully and who to run away from, right? Like, he knows how to pick them, man. He knows how to pick weak idiots and people that, like, it's amazing. Like, when he ran up, did you see what he did with Zohran Mamdani? He bent down and kissed his foot and said, "You can call me a fascist, oh, Zohran," because he knows that Zohran would be a bad political enemy to fight against. The more he escalated or elevated Zohran, the worse he would do. So he just avoids that fight completely. But he does know how to find weak people that he can pressure and manipulate. That's his genius. That's his skill. I mean, Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. Have there ever been weaker candidates in the history of America with less motion? Like, fuck, I could have beat them. Truly incredible. And I'm not saying I couldn't beat anyone. Right? I couldn't beat anyone. But somehow Donald Trump maneuvered the two worst presidential candidates in history. I mean, John Kerry was pretty bad. That's all right. I'll give you that one. John Kerry is pretty bad too. God damn, the Democrats love terrible candidates, huh?
Price will go back up again. As for the longer term, how much of the economic crisis is baked in? Is the cake actually rising now? Inflation, how much damage has been done? We don't really know. It'll be a few more weeks before we can quantify that. Certainly an element of damage, but the better news is that things are looking better. Now they've got to actually prove it.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear that the president is wanting this war to come to an end rather quickly as well. He sees all of these economic numbers. CNN's, thank you so much. Really appreciate Richard Quest. Thank you for joining us.
What are we hearing from the president on all of this? He's on quite a spree on Truth Social this morning on these big developments, Betsy.
Yes, Pamela, President Trump and his team are watching this very closely, receiving regular updates from here in Las Vegas, where the president is making an economic push. But news that the Strait of Hormuz is reopening, very welcome, and officials are feeling optimistic as these talks are progressing in real time. President Trump reacting in that flurry of social media posts. Now, we are learning, according to reporting from our colleagues Elena Treen and Kevin Liptak, that the Trump administration is also considering freezing $20 billion in Iranian assets as part of these negotiations. I want to read to you from a post the president sent just a few moments ago. He says, quote, "The USA will get all nuclear dust created by our great B-2 bombers. No money will exchange hands in any way, shape, or form." Of course, this idea of Iran potentially benefiting financially from this deal, even if no money is exchanged, could lead to some criticism of President Trump, who has been critical.
Wait, what happened? Graham Plattner interview on Zateo on why a political revolution, fighting genocide, and why he's not John Fetterman. I have to check that out.
Of similar deals under the Obama administration, but officials are hoping that a broader deal to end this conflict could be finalized as soon as this weekend, and they are watching those talks between Iranian and Pakistani officials very, very closely to see that if a potential second round of talks...
Is Iran a paper tiger? No, they're not. But I think that they got bamboozled. And it's hard to believe. Like, how many ceasefires did it is so weird how people think that I'm going to be the person that Donald Trump treats fairly in a deal. How many times has Israel betrayed a ceasefire? How many fucking times have they demonstrated that they can't be trusted? And yet people still get tricked. They bombed the Iranian negotiators to start the war. It was only a month ago. It's unbelievable.
take place in Islamabad as soon as this weekend. Now, there are still some major sticking points, and that includes how long Iran has agreed to pause its uranium enrichment, as well as retrieval of Iran's nuclear material. That is what President Trump is referring to as nuclear dust. But all of this comes after the president yesterday announced a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, something that sources say really paved the way for these quickly progressing developments, as well as this announcement that the Strait of Hormuz is reopening. President Trump has said that the Strait blockade will remain in full force until that deal is complete. But we are already seeing oil prices go down, the stock market going up due to this news. It comes as the president is here trying to make that economic pitch, and people I've talked to are already feeling the crunch from this conflict. Pamela and Wolf.
All right. Betsy Klein, thanks for the latest.
$20 billion for nuclear material has been floated, not decided. Nick referenced to reporting. And I will quote from it. One proposal includes unfreezing assets in exchange for Iran turning over its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Iran has asked for major sanctions relief, unfreezing of assets north of the 20 billion figure. The sources said the discussions are ongoing, haven't been resolved. This is like the crux of.
So in other words, Iran gave Trump exactly what he wanted by saying the Strait of Hormuz is open, and they don't have a deal on anything that matters.
Strait is the linchpin, I think, from an economic perspective. But this is the crux of the deal that every president has been going after for decades and decades. What's your latest sense of things?
Yeah, I mean, those were the two biggest sticking points, I think, throughout these entire negotiations. And as you mentioned, the Strait, one of them. But I think for now, seems more likely to be resolved. It's this idea of how long will Iran actually commit to suspending their enrichment of uranium, and then also the idea of going in to retrieve the enriched, having the U.S. or perhaps another country, some sort of mediator going in to retrieve the uranium that they already have.
And he just put out a flurry of social media posts this morning announcing the U.S. would acquire all of Iran's, quote, nuclear dust, and that money would not be exchanged in negotiations for that nuclear dust, as he calls it, from the B-2 bombers. But two sources are telling CNN this morning the administration is considering unfreezing $20 billion in Iranian assets as part of the negotiations. Really quick, I want to play what the president said earlier about the Obama administration's Iran deal.
And then, very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash. Green cash, took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work.
Is it a good idea for the U.S. to consider releasing these funds to Iran? What do you think?
Well, we obviously were very critical of the way President Obama handled giving cash to Iran. I think it really depends on the negotiation that President Trump comes through with them. What are we getting in exchange? What are the security measurements that we're going to receive, and have the assurances that they're not going to pursue any sort of nuclear capability? President Trump is a tough negotiator. I mean, we've been really able to watch him negotiate almost as a general public through the Truth Social post, and there's days you're like, wow. But this is the way he negotiates. He's a tough negotiator, and he gets results,
including threatening taking out an entire civilization.
Well, and you know what? That was one of the things that they, as he said, they say death to Israel, death to America. And I think we have to take them seriously, and while they are a much smaller country and they don't have the capabilities that we do as Americans, we still have to take it seriously. And I think that those were the types of words that they understood what those meant. I believe that he never intended to do that, but it was simply the rhetoric to put them in a position of he means business.
The bottom line is the U.S. has long pointed to Iran as being a state sponsor of terrorism, going back 47 years. And Trump, for his part, said that this war was initiated to prevent Iran from funding that, right? Yeah. So if the U.S. does ultimately unfreeze these assets for Iran as part of these negotiations and move the blockade away so the oil ports are open, does that essentially allow it to continue to be a state sponsor of terrorism?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I was born in 1976, and
isn't it amazing how CNN is like to the right of the Republican she's interviewing? Isn't that insane? Like, I just had to pause it for a second. Like, every premise is, isn't Trump kind of a pussy like Obama? Isn't Iran a terrorist state? It's like the media is to the right of Donald Trump and the Republican and their assumptions. It's like Itmar Ben-Gvir is up there interviewing him. It's almost hard to believe.
As long as I can remember, Iran has been a state sponsor of terrorism. I mean, they have killed thousands of Americans. They continue to fund these proxies in the Middle East, causing disruptions, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, and of course, all of the instability in Syria and Iraq. Iran's always behind it. And that's why I really, truly believe that President Trump knows this is the moment that there has to be a change in ideology in the government in Iran. And, that's
a change in ideology in the government in Iran.
It's going to take some time here, but I think the hardest part of the work is done, and now it's going to be a lot of diplomacy and also pressure where the pressure needs to be put in place to push them that direction.
Plus, the Strait of Hormuz is declared open by Iran while a Lebanon-Israel ceasefire holds. Britain and France have welcomed the announcement, but warned that more needs to be done.
We welcome the announcement that was made during our meeting. But we need to make sure that that is both lasting and a workable proposal. And if anything, it reinforces the need for the work that we've been doing this afternoon, because we're very clear that the mission that we're putting together is a defensive mission and that comes after a ceasefire.
Where did Iran kill thousands of Americans? The answer to that is that the IRGC has been training and supporting various pro-Iranian militias, especially in Iraq. When the resistance to American occupation in Iraq, the most effective militias and guerrilla groups were associated with and supported by Iran, which is not really disputed. I'm pretty sure Iran kind of brags about it, to be honest. And most people consider Iraq to be pro-Iran now because the pro-Iranian militias are some of the most politically powerful in the country. So America did lose thousands of troops to, various resistance forces, but, people that were resisting occupation. It's not like the Iran came over to America, was like stabbing people on the street or something.
The announcement broke as British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron co-hosted dozens of world leaders on the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. CNN's Melissa Bell is outside the Élysée Palace in Paris for more. And Melissa, I'm serious when I ask this question. What is the point of this meeting for European officials when they don't have a stake in any of the decision making here, as has been seen given the announcement from President Trump of potentially a deal looming, and also that the strait, as for now, is open?
This was a meeting that was initially proposed by the British and the French, but that also attracted in presence. They were actually here in Paris, the Italian leader and the German leader. But there were some 50 participants in it, many remotely. They were global organizations, but some 30 heads of state or government. And that's important because it wasn't just Europeans. What we're talking about are the leaders from Latin America through the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific, those parts of the world that were not belligerent in this case, that are not directly involved in the war, but have been on the front line of its effects, of its impacts. And so they came together to try and put together, and they've been talking about this for some weeks, this coalition to ensure that navigation can stay open in the Strait of Hormuz. The idea is that they want no blockade, they want no tolls, and they want the end of fighting, a ceasefire allowing them to mount this mission with the help of We're
getting a report from Al Jazeera that Iran is claiming they're collecting tolls. Iran to impose fees on ships crossing Strait of Hormuz, says negotiator. The Iranian ISNA news agency has quoted Mahmoud Nabavian, an official it described as a member of Iran's negotiating team, as saying that some commercial ships will be permitted to cross the Strait of Hormuz, but only after paying fees. Nabavian linked the opening to the ceasefire in Lebanon, despite Trump's denying the two were associated. Both Trump and Iranian officials have issued conflicting claims about the deal to reopen Hormuz and the broader understanding being negotiated between Washington and Tehran. However, neither country has released an official text of any agreement. And again, this is why I've been saying what I've been saying today, which is Iran gave Trump exactly what they wanted with their dumbass statement about the strait being open. Why did they do that? That was exactly what Trump and Israel wanted. They wanted you to say the strait is open so that the stock market would go up, which is the only thing that puts any pressure on Trump. And now that they've said that, the taco Trump is the belief. Stock market is soaring to all-time highs. Crypto is soaring. It's up $10,000 in the last week of Bitcoin. It was as low as 63,000 a coin back in February. Bitcoin is up to 77,000. It's been trading around 69,000 for 2 months. It's now breaking out to the high side, up 3% today. Gold is skyrocketing, silver is skyrocketing, oil is crashing, bond yields are declining, markets are nearing all-time highs. You know, they gave America and Trump exactly what they wanted. Because someone explain why this has an effect on crypto. People are buying assets. They think the economy is going to go up. They think that the pressure on the world economy from the Iran war is going to be going away. So they're buying because they assume the economy is going to continue to grow. And so Iran basically gave Donald Trump exactly what he wanted. Only commercial vessels are permitted. No military ships or cargo linked to hostile countries. Ships must use routes designated by Iran. And all transit must be coordinated with Iranian authorities. Yeah, that's what we saw. And it doesn't appear that ships are actually doing it. It doesn't. And by the way, for everybody who was yelling at me earlier to not overreact to this news, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I respect that position, right? What I am reacting to is the political implication of what Iran did. The political implication of what Iran did is give Trump and Israel more space to attack Iran further. They gave Trump and Iran more ability to prolong the war by calming markets. I'm not being a panikin. I'm being explain to you what that means politically. They strategically blundered by giving Trump more room to attack. That is why it's a blunder. Iran, and I'm not trying to come across like I know the world better than the Iranian government, okay? I'm just saying I do know the American government. I do know American politics. I can tell you the consequences of what has happened is that Trump will be emboldened and he will receive less pressure from the capitalist class. That is a fact. That's not a debatable point. So prior to this announcement, there was growing pressure on the Trump administration to stop the war. Now there's going to be lessening pressure because it seems like Iran is capitulating. And as the stock markets go up and oil prices decline, forces aligned with Trump are seeming to succeed in the context of what they consider success to be. I don't know if Trump attacks, he will lose the stock bounce. I think he's locked into a ceasefire. What is it that Iran is extracting that is actually damaging to America strategically? That's what you need to that's what you need to ask yourself. What is Iran going to get that is damaging to the United States strategically? If Iran is selling their uranium, if Iran is agreeing to not have a nuclear program, then Donald Trump is succeeding. He'll be in a better position than he was when he started the war. If Iran is charging tolls, that makes American oil structurally cheaper, and that increases the profitability of American companies because they'll be able to charge higher prices for oil on the oil market. So strategically, it makes America even more profitable. And everybody that buys oil from the Middle East will be paying structurally higher prices. Yes, Iran would gain an influx of cash, but if they're still isolated from the world of markets, if they're still sanctioned, if they're still persona non grata for the world system, then what are they going to buy? Theo has made me penne pasta with Parmesan. Thank you, Vio. Yeah, it all depends. Whatever the final deal is. I mean, could anybody say this looks like? Now, what's the counter argument? I want the most pro-Iranian argument that you can come up with right now. I'm not calling anybody an idiot, by the way. I'm sorry I was calling people copers and everything. I'm just very frustrated with how Trump, I know the consequences of what they did is bad for the world. And I am like, why the fuck did you tweet that? You literally gave Trump exactly what he wanted. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I understand American context. So it's like, what is the cope? Oh, they're going to charge tolls. Does that bring back the hundreds of dead kids? Does that bring back the bombed out infrastructure? Does that bring back the Navy that sunk? Does that bring back the tens of thousands of strikes that have taken place on Iranian infrastructure and military forces? Like, does that bring back the dozens of villages that have been leveled by Israel and Lebanon? Like, what the fuck are we saying here? Still controls the strait, selling oil, Containing Israel via the U.S. In what way are they containing Israel? They damaged American bases in the region. That's true. But how did this agreement affect that? All the things that you're bringing up are things that already were true before they made this announcement and this concession.
Ships of France, the United Kingdom, Germany and Italy in order to carry out minesweeping operations. Now, crucially, only once a ceasefire has been struck. Then this announcement of the lifting on the Iranian side of the blockade and all the hope that it has brought. But what the French president wanted to keep front and center was the need for prudence, because we've seen so many times before, at moments of a glimmer of hope, disappointment then. Faced with the maximalist demands of the United States, the intransigence of the Iranians, and the continued frustration of the rest of the world faced with this, the idea here was to try and do something about it without being in those involved.
I agree with this, by the way. I completely agree with Macron on this. Macron is right. He's saying don't overreact positively. He's right. Maybe this will fall apart. But the point is, you gave something to Trump for no fucking reason. Why did you say that? You should have said fucking nothing until you had the deal inked. You should have said fucking nothing. But by saying what you said, you gave Trump more opportunity to be aggressive. You increased his strategic position. That's why I'm like, this was dumb as fuck. Because if Iran ends up, closing the strait again, and then the United States will argue that they're an aggressor. Like, you are shifting the blame onto yourself. So you gave Trump a sop for no fucking reason, and then you're going to try to negotiate? What?
Directly in the war. This is what the French president had to say.
Could it be that Iran is betting on Israel breaking the ceasefire? Israel has broken ceasefires for 3 fucking years and nobody gives a shit. Israel has broken every international law. They got the United States to sanction ICC judges. International Criminal Court judges are getting sanctioned by the American government. United Nations officials are getting fucking debanked for criticizing Israel. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh my God, I can't believe Israel attacked Lebanon again. Wow, the world is going to totally shift against Israel. Israel has been breaking every fucking ceasefire they've made. This gives Iran breathing room to secretly develop their nuclear program and fundraise that development, eventually revealing their achievements in dramatic fashion, shifting the balance of power in the Middle East. They should have developed a nuclear weapon 10 fucking years ago. The moment that Trump broke the Iran nuclear agreement, they should have developed a nuke imminently. Now they've been bombed to hell. But they had a fuck nukes though. Yeah, their leadership was not smart. That's why they're dead. You trusted America to keep its word. And then after it broke its word and every international law, you got attacked. And I'm not saying that I like this. I hate it. I hate the fact that the United States is breaking international law. It leads to a world of war. Because all it takes is the United States to miscalculate this brinksmanship violence with the wrong country, and we have a nuclear bomb going off somewhere. We have a fucking conventional war with China that could easily escalate to a nuclear war. There's some sort of dumb shit that happens between Pakistan and India, or India and China. This is the world that they're creating. They're creating a world of dangerous nuclear brinksmanship. Maybe something between Russia and Europe. There are all sorts of dumbass shit. I don't want to live in that world that the United States is creating. It is a dangerous world of fucking stupidity. And that's why it's, this conflict was an opportunity to see the United States humbled. And if the United States is able to, and Israel are able to carve off sections of Lebanon and get out of this conflict without a recession, without paying any consequences, it's going to end up with them doing more. The reason why they attacked Iran is because they got away with Venezuela. Do you understand that? Like, they got away with Venezuela. They did a operation to kidnap Maduro. They got away with it. They're stealing the oil and gold from Venezuela, personally profiting in the White House. So that induced them to attack Iran because they felt like they could get away with it. And the more the United States gets away with this shit, the more they're going to keep escalating until they finally lose. That's what happened with Nazi Germany, by the way. Nazi Germany kept winning diplomatically. They kept winning with these kind of like targeted military operations, remilitarizing the Rhineland, taking the Sudetenland, and then taking Prague as well, which was outside of the agreements. Memel, we're talking about the way that Germany overbuilt their military, violating all the treaties against the rearmament. Germany just kept getting away with more and more and more and more, and they kept escalating. The more they got, the more they kept escalating and pushing and pushing. And then we had the Danzig corridor, and that ultimately led to World War II. And the United States of America is doing the same shit. It's doing more and more and more aggression and more aggression and more aggression. And they keep being rewarded and they're not being stopped. They keep being appeased. They keep being appeased. And there's no end to Donald Trump's greed. There's no end to Benjamin Netanyahu's greed. You should take Greater Israel as a serious project that they are actively trying to achieve, which means destroying millions upon millions of people. That means they want to annex Jordan. That means they want to annex Lebanon. That means they want to annex Syria. That means they want to annex parts of Iraq and Saudi Arabia and Egypt. You should not consider that to be a joke. That is a serious project that they're trying to accomplish. If I were Canadian, if I were in Greenland, you should recognize that Donald Trump is a serious threat to you. Austrians,
we demand a total reopening.
You know, I'm sure there were plenty of liberal Austrians that were coping. And then what happened? Austria was absorbed. I didn't even bring up the Anschluss in my long list of things that Germany was doing.
Immediately, unconditionally, by all parties of the Strait of Hormuz. We demand a restoration of the conditions of free navigation that were in place before the war.
So they're feeling prudent about the prospects of peace because, of course, the complexity of the negotiations ahead leaves no doubt to leaders who gathered here in Europe, in Paris.
Okay, we've got a tweet, chat. Senior Iranian official says Iran and the U.S. still face major gaps on war-ending deal on nuclear file, telling Reuters that no agreement exists on any nuclear details. This makes your statements even more embarrassing about the Strait. What the fuck are you doing? Jesus Christ.
Today, but they are also simply actually looking for a return to the situation before this war began. Bianna.
All right, Melissa Bell in Paris for us. Thank you.
Now, I will say, from all of the conversations I've been having today with Trump administration officials, White House officials, they are very optimistic that a deal could potentially be finalized as early as this weekend. What I'm told is that really what we are watching play out, Nick was describing it in Tehran with the Pakistanis, mainly the Field Marshal, Asim Munir, who has been really the lead person talking with top Trump administration officials and the Iranians. How that goes today, if they can successfully get the Iranians to agree to a certain number of things that we know they are really pushing for, these are two of the biggest ones.
Chad,
then
there's broccoli in this penne. Vio's like, you got to eat some vegetables, Mike. Throw it out. What are you, a child? Broccoli slaps when it's cooked right.
Believe they could get there. Now, of course, we've heard these discussions of potential second round of talks. I think actually at this point what the Trump administration is hoping for, again, this is all.
We have somebody in the chat called Broccoli Enthusiast. Broccoli Enthusiast has been following me. They like broccoli and they like chai. Oh my God, Robo Mike again?
All, best case scenario, I should say. This is not something that is a done deal. But they're hoping that actually if they, these top officials, Witkoff, Kushner, perhaps J.D. Vance, go to Pakistan, that it would be more of a formality, that it would be signing a potential document, finalizing a couple last-minute things, but that really the big discussions are happening in Tehran today. And what's also been so fascinating to me, it's almost frustrating because I am trying to report this out, seeing the president posting repeatedly nonstop, 11-plus truths today. I'm told that's really, he has been getting constant updates from the Pakistanis who are in Tehran, and then he's posting about on True Social. The thing I would tell our viewers and remind them is that this is his interpretation of it, and this is one side of the agreement. The Iranians obviously have a different one, and so there are still, gaps that need to be closed, but they are in a much more confident position than they have been in recent days.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We begin looking at the latest on Iran. The stakes could not be higher, as the fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran has not yet led to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the economically vital waterway for economies all over the world. On Thursday, President Trump repeated his claim a deal to end the war in Iran is very close and that direct talks with Iran could resume in Islamabad, Pakistan, as soon as this weekend. This comes after a high-level Pakistani delegation visited Tehran on Wednesday, seeking to lay the groundwork for more negotiations. A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry said he remains skeptical of the United States.
در مورد حدس و گمان‌هایی که راجع به It remains to be seen to what extent the other side is truly serious about the claims they've made regarding diplomacy. It is the Americans who must prove their seriousness, because they have not only failed to adhere to their commitments many times, but have also fundamentally destroyed the negotiating table.
The Pentagon, meanwhile, is surging thousands of additional troops to the Middle East, including an additional 6,000 sailors and aviators joining the USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier battle group. During a news briefing at the Pentagon Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth directed some of his comments to the Iranians.
We are reloading with more power than ever before, and better intelligence. Even more importantly, better intelligence than ever before, as you expose yourself with your movement to our watchful eye. We are locked and loaded on your critical dual-use infrastructure, on your remaining power generation, and on your energy industry. We'd rather not have to do it, but we're ready to go at the command of our president and at the push of a button.
For more on the latest developments in a very pivotal moment for this war, we're joined by Ali Vaez. He's in Geneva, in Switzerland, senior advisor to the president of the International Crisis Group, where he's also the Iran Project Director. He wrote a piece earlier this month for the New York Times headlined, "Trump has lost control of events in Iran." Ali Vaez, thanks for joining us again. Do you feel that way still? What is your understanding of talks again happening in Pakistan, the significance of the Pakistani delegation going to Tehran?
It's great to see you. Yes, I do believe that the reason the president wanted an off-ramp was because he did realize that he had lost control of this war, that he went in with unrealistic expectations, that this would be easy, and in a matter of a few days, the Iranians would fold and would capitulate to his terms. 5 weeks later, he's nowhere closer to Iranian capitulation than was the case at the beginning of this war. And in fact, now the Iranians even have more leverage in the form of the control over the Strait of Hormuz. My understanding is that the talks in Islamabad didn't really go that well because neither side was willing to make the necessary concessions that are required to reach a compromise, because they both believe that they still have the upper hand. And the Pakistani mediators are now trying to negotiate some sort of a framework, a memorandum of understanding that would at least outline what are the key areas that they would have to negotiate. So with that, they would be able to extend the ceasefire. That's the objective, which at this point remains a very moderate ambition, I would say.
So can you respond to Pete Hegseth saying the U.S. is locked and loaded, and this back and forth between the President of the United States, President Trump, and the Pope Leo, who's on a trip through Africa, who first said, you know, blessed be the peacemakers, and then said the world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants. Yet it's held together by a multitude of supportive brothers and sisters.
Well, first of all, it's I don't know what the president expects the Pope to say other than talking about peace and not being a warmonger. I mean, it's really stunning to expect the Pope to say anything other than that. But look, the reality is, yes, the U.S. might be locked and loaded, and the U.S. is sending more troops to the region. And the Iranians are paying attention to what the U.S. does and not what it says. So no doubt that we might be, at some point, returning to a hot war. But the same applies to the Iranians, that they too are locked and loaded, and they too have demonstrated that they have preserved a degree of retaliatory capacity that would be pretty problematic for the United States. And they still have cards to play. They can still, in addition to the Strait of Hormuz, shut down Bab el-Mandab, the access to the Red Sea, where Saudi Emirati oil is being exported to Asia. And that would create a major economic shock for the world and for the United States as well. So yes, both sides still have cards to play. Both sides can still inflict pain on one another. But at the end of the day, they will have to go to a negotiating table and compromise. So why not do it now?
So let's talk about the nuclear program. Hegseth said the War Department will ensure Iran never has a nuclear weapon, never. Khamenei, who was assassinated in this joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike at the start of the war, had issued a fatwa forbidding nuclear weapons under Islamic law. However, Iranian officials have openly acknowledged their capacity to build such weapons if they choose. Can you respond to what the back and forth is right now with President Trump said they are agreeing with the United States? What exactly do you think Iran is agreeing to, and how far will these negotiations, the next round after the first collapse, go?
Look, the Iranians have been saying for years that they don't want nuclear weapons. The former supreme leader had a religious edict, a fatwa against nuclear weapons. In the opening pages of the 2015 nuclear deal, the Iranians committed to not developing a nuclear weapon. So that is not a new thing, then that's not a new concession to President Trump. The question has always been, would the Iranians accept to curb their nuclear activities for a long period of time and subject them to international monitoring? And in return, would the U.S. be willing to provide them with economic incentives and sanctions relief? We had a deal along those lines. The president withdrew from it and now has difficulty getting back into a deal that does the same thing. We're now talking about the administration asking for restrictions on Iran.
There's also a new context, which is the United States and Israel have attacked Iran's territory multiple times. They've assassinated Iranian leaders, right? So the idea that Iran could just go back to the Iranian nuclear deal, the one that got ripped up? Any type of material concession that Iran makes to the United States that relies on the United States complying is a sucker deal. The United States has demonstrated to Iran that it cannot be trusted to follow through on agreements. It would have to be transactionally front-loaded, where the United States gives a whole bunch of concessions to Iran directly up front in order to induce Iran to make a deal. Now, if Iran makes a deal that doesn't include that, they're a sucker. And the value that they're getting for the deal should be front loaded. And that's just reality. That's because, again, America has shown they cannot be trusted to maintain deals that they sign.
Enrichment program for 20 years. The most important restrictions in the 2015 nuclear deal were for 15 years. So did we go through all of this maximum pressure that really devastated the Iranian middle class? And now 2 rounds of war in less than a year, costing the United States hundreds of billions of dollars to add just an additional 5 years on restrictions on Iran's nuclear program. It really doesn't make any sense. But again, at the end of the day, if the United States wants Iran to have a peaceful nuclear program, the best solution is a negotiated agreement which would reestablish international monitoring over that program and would basically impose certain restrictions on it. Not completely shut it down, because that would be a humiliating outcome for the Iranians. And Amy, unfair deals beget unfaithful deal makers. And you definitely don't want that with a country that has already learned how to enrich uranium and has what it takes to develop nuclear weapons if the political will is there.
Ali Vaez, in a moment, we're going to go to Beirut, but I wanted to ask you how the 10-day Israel-Lebanon ceasefire will impact the second round of negotiations between Iran and the United States.
Well, that was a necessary condition for the talks to move forward, but it is not sufficient. As I said, it would require the United States to step aside from maximalist demands. It would require the Iranians to also show flexibility in order to reach at least a framework agreement. But without a ceasefire in Lebanon, that would not have been possible. So this is a good development, but it's not enough to reach a deal.
And the significance of the House and the Senate not passing a war powers resolution around Iran as we wrap up?
Well, that clearly demonstrates that this presidency is completely unchecked, and the president can wage wars that are illegal, not just according to international law, but even according to U.S. Constitution, because it doesn't have the consent of Congress. And it's really a pity that Congress cannot assert its authority in a case where American lives are at stake, in addition to the economic costs for American taxpayers.
Ali Vaez, I want to thank you very much for being with us. Senior advisor to the president of the International Crisis Group, where he's also the Iran project director. We'll link to your piece in the New York Times. Headline, Trump has lost control of events in Iran. He's speaking to us from Geneva, Switzerland. Thanks for watching.
I don't know what else to say, chat. I really don't know what else to say. So I guess we'll see if Iran is playing three-dimensional chess with this announcement that the Strait is open, and maybe it'll turn out the Strait won't be open. I mean, that would be a really good three-dimensional chess, right? Like, you allow the oil prices to come down, you allow the stock market to go up, and then all of a sudden you shoot a bunch of ships and you sink a bunch of ships and cause panic. Is that the plan? Is that the plan? What's the plan? No, I'm exaggerating. At the end of the day, like, what can you even say? Trump's Lebanon warning to Netanyahu unprecedented. Trump's post that Israel is prohibited from bombing Lebanon is incredibly strong and not something you tend to hear from U.S. presidents. Israel doesn't often get spoken to like that from the White House, and if they do, they usually respond, "What are you going to do about it?" We know the strength that they have on Capitol Hill, and the support that. Sorry, I was reading that, and then things. What the fuck? Okay, sorry. We know about the strength they have on Capitol Hill, the support they have there. We know how much money the Israelis get from the U.S. every year. Often the Israelis have thought they would never ever have to justify what they do to the United States at any point. But here we have a president that Netanyahu has said several times is the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House, making the statement. Trump has effectively, by the use of social media, backed them into a corner. The test will come if Israel decides that it's under threat and needs to take some action in southern Lebanon and continues bombing, then there could be a problem. Guys, Israel is not under threat. This is all an aggressive invasion that they're doing to annex. They're not attacking southern Lebanon because they're under threat. Many presidents have had harsh words for the Israelis, but none has come out with such strong words saying they are forbidden from doing something. Yes, they have. They pick up the telephone. They just don't tweet. But Donald Trump is kind of dumb. Yet Israel is ignoring it and attacking anyway. Breaking, despite President Trump prohibiting Israel from striking Lebanon, a fresh Israeli drone strike has just killed at least one person in southern Lebanon. Just an hour earlier, President Trump posted on Truth Social, the USA will separately work with Lebanon and deal with the Hezbollah situation in an appropriate manner. Israel will not be bombing Lebanon any longer. They are prohibited from doing so by the USA. Enough is enough. The Lebanese army had already reported ceasefire violations before the strike, including hours after it went into place when Israel struck an ambulance in the town of Kunain, close to the border on Friday, with reported casualties among targeted medical workers. The Lebanese recorded a number of violations of the agreement, with several Israeli attacks recorded in addition to intermediate shelling targeting a number of villages, it said in the statement. Alrighty, folks, ladies and gentlemen, that is my feeling about that. What a strategically interesting decision by Iran. Stock markets are cooling slightly off of the highs, but still up almost 2% on the day, nearing an all-time high. They're headed toward 50,000. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 is at a record high. Never been higher than right now. And wow. Silver's up over $80 a pound or ounce. $80 an ounce. Money's never been more fake. Oil has declined 11% today, 9% in Europe, down to $84 a barrel, 82 in June. Mike, what's the best sauce for chicken wings? There is a restaurant in Koreatown, Los Angeles that is so fucking good. It's this Korean dive bar. And they make skewers, but they have wings. I think it's Dang Suk Sa. I can't say the Korean name. I'm sorry, chat. But it's so fucking good. They like have these buffalo wings that they lacquer with this sauce. And I think it may be my favorite wings in the entire world. It's this like sweet and spicy Korean sauce. It is absolutely bone in. How dare you even ask me that question? Do you think I'm a fucking child? Do you think I'm a fucking child? Wings have bones in them. I don't even want to tell you this restaurant, chat, because I like that restaurant so much. I don't want you to see you there. Do you see Chinese students denied entry here in Seattle at SeaTac? What? China urges travelers to avoid Seattle airport after 20 scholars were denied entry to the United States. What? Chinese government officials are encouraging travelers to be wary and avoid entering the United States through Seattle, citing a pattern of continued harassment by U.S. Customs and Border Protection personnel. China Consular Affairs said in a post on X that the academics were unreasonably inspected by CBP personnel and denied entry. What the fuck? You spelled spies wrong in your headline, AP. How are these so botted? God. Do you know any wing sauce recipes? Yes. Yes. I used to make this wing sauce called Sweet and Sweaty. Oh, God, was it good. Sweet and Sweaty. It would be, it's like butter, Louisiana hot sauce, and honey. And it was so fucking good. Holy shit. And if you don't like, you don't understand how good this shit is. Backed military dictatorship in Brazil, and he's trying to avoid being caught. Super fucking cool. Exciting. I'm very excited to check it out. So we will be doing that in the Discord tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We get together, we watch a movie in the Discord. Here's the link. Make sure you check that out. And we also have another episode of the Reaction Podcast dropping this weekend. A brand new episode of Reaction Podcast. I believe this week we are doing the Destiny episode. Last week was Clavicular. We've had Asmongold, Sam Hyde, Real Charlie Kirk. I'm going to be checking it out. So the new episode of the Reaction Podcast. We live through the consequences of that to this day, of course. So make sure you guys are subscribed. And also, if you could do me a solid and go and throw some ratings, listen to and post some ratings there on Apple Podcasts. Help drive us up the Apple Podcast charts. We've got Charlie Kirk, Sam Hyde, Asmongold, Nick Fuentes, and of course, Clavicular. I can't rate it because I don't have an iPhone. Buy an iPhone just so you can rate it. Go into debt. I don't have Apple product. I hate Apple. Sorry, Mike. You could also watch it in many other places. What else was I gonna say? I don't know if you saw this, but Analia had her election yesterday. Analia Mejia outperformed the centrist Democrats' best ever result by 5 percentage points during the 2018 blue wave. So Analia ended up winning D plus 20, which is outperforming the incumbent reps 24 result by 5 points, by 14 points, 12 points of the presidential margin. So Analia with a huge landslide. You can review it on Apple Podcasts without an Apple product. Just go to the website and create an account. Oh, thank you, Obi-Wan. Are you playing any new games recently? Well, according to the fact that we had a Golden Kappa hype trade today, I have to play Metal Gear Solid. I heard it's good. So we will be doing that soon. All right. Well, I'm going to call it a bit early today, chat. Long week this week. Lots of good news. Lots of interesting news. Can't wait to see how this ceasefire falls apart. Really stupid move by Iran, which I've been convinced by the chat that it's not going to hold up and the strait's going to get closed again. 61.6% white district. Oh, yeah. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, chat. I will see you all very soon. And have a wonderful weekend. I will see you on the Discord. Here's all the links. Make sure you follow me everywhere. Who is live right now that I like? Freda's been a gamer lately. So I want to throw you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to Freda. Thanks so much for your support. I'll see you soon. Solidarity forever. Socialism will win. The evil American empire will be contained. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever. I'll see you soon. Peace out.